of all the gin joints in all the world. Jack Smith, gotcha. Calm as a bitch, ain't it?
Oh, Mr. President, gosh, thank heavens you're here. Listen, I know I crossed some lines.
Crossed some lines? Jack, you went off the fucking cliff.
I know. The indictments, the raids, that old Mar-a-Lago circus. It was just all a big misunderstanding.
Misunderstanding, huh?
Yeah, please, I'm begging you, please pardon me. I'll do anything. I'll testify that the 2020 election was stolen fair and square. Just get me out of here before shower time.
Jackie boy, look at you. I mean, it's tremendous seeing you on this side of the bars. Remember when you dragged me through the mud with those classified documents?
Yeah, and I'm sorry about that.
Hey, water under the bridge. Apology accepted.
Did my sorry work?
Yeah, Jack, your sorry worked. I forgive you.
Oh, thank God. So, when can you get me out of here?
Well, let's see here. What do you think, Cash? Should I get him out of here?
Please, Cash, please.
What the hell? Get him out of here, boss.
Oh, thank you. So, when can I leave?
In about 20 fucking years, you rat fuck.
What? But I said I was sorry.
Jack, you're not in here for jaywalking, bro. Sit back and relax. You're gonna be here for a long time.
No!
Oh, look at him, crying like a baby in a bad remake of Shawshank. Hey, Jack, remember when you tried to gag me during the campaign?
Yeah, sorry about that.
Hey, Jack, remember when you indicted President Trump for obstructing Congress?
Look, I'm sorry, okay? But I need your help. I mean, I'm scared in here.
Scared, huh? Join the club, buddy. I mean, I had Secret Service yanked. I was impeached twice, raided at dawn. I mean, they tried to assassinate me. You know what? You didn't break me. They didn't break me. I broke all of you.
I'm so alone. I don't have anyone to talk to.
Don't worry, Jack. I brought you some friends.
Okay, I'm going to be doing this one on the hearings. I'm going to fast forward the parts where all the crap with the Democrats are insane. The crap they were saying was ridiculous.
I mean, would you please instruct the gentleman to allow the witness to answer the question?
It's not your time. I'd like my time back.
Mr. Chairman, you've repeatedly done that in the past. The witness has the right to answer the question.
And there'll be due time to answer the question. Would you please put my time back and let me finish this? Mr. Smith, I asked you a question and you were not responsive to it, and I want you to be responsive to it. Did you, whether you think it was legal or not, whether you think it was right or not, did you withhold the name of Kevin McCarthy, Speaker of the House, when you were seeking records on Kevin McCarthy, the Speaker of the House, or Jim Jordan, the chairman of this committee?
At the time the gentleman is...
No, please give me back the time that would take it away.
Time has expired, but we're going to let the witness answer your question because it's an important question. The witness can respond.
We did not provide that information to the judge when we requested a non-disclosure order, consistent with the law and consistent with Department
Mr. Chairman, the amazing thing here today is that we have an admission that an article...
Mr. Chairman, the gentleman's time has expired by now 34 seconds.
It gets more than 5 minutes.
How many times are you going to interrupt me?
The time belongs to the gentleman from California, but it has expired.
I will be brief in my address to the chairman. We have the evidence that an Article 1 representative on behalf of the president withheld that Article 3.
Mr. Chairman, I witness granted the same leniency.
And with that, I yield back in
Democrats
disgust of this witness.
Sticking with California, the gentlelady from California is now recognized.
Democrats are desperate.
Thank you for being here today.
This is
You know,
ridiculous.
earlier, the
Fast
chairman
forward
spent a
some
lot of
parts.
time talking about Cassidy Hutchinson, who we know was just one of many witnesses delayed, told quotes, in what you meant. The grand jury testimony that's now been released.
He was looking for ways to stay in power. In fact, to win or in other contexts.
Bunch of crap.
Statements and further.
Right.
I do not, and I want to be clear that the total
You were
records-
collecting months worth of phone data on the Republican Speaker of the House, the leader of the opposition.
Let me go back one.
I do
You subpoenaed his toll records.
don't recall, but those two things had nothing.
21. How many days after Kevin McCarthy was sworn in?
Could you say that again?
We're not going to delay like this. The subpoena covered the 2023. Did you subpoena then Speaker of the House Kevin McCarthy?
Lives on January 6th.
The gentleman from Texas, Mr. Gill, is recognized for 5 minutes.
Found it.
Mr. Smith, in January of 2023, did you subpoena then Speaker of
Let
the
me know
House
when you
Kevin
pop in.
McCarthy's toll records?
Yes, sir, we did.
Yes, you did. And the subpoena covered the time period between November 2020 and January 2021. Is that right?
I'm sorry, sir, could you say that again?
We're not going to delay like this. The subpoena covered the time period between November of 2020 and January 2021. How many days after Kevin McCarthy was sworn in as Speaker did you subpoena his records?
I don't recall, but those two things had nothing to
It
do
was
with one.
16 days after becoming the highest ranking Republican in the House
I
of
know my head's cut
Representatives. You
off.
subpoenaed his toll
He had a
records.
thing scrolling
Do you
across the
agree that
bottom.
that
and I
might
didn't want to cut off
reasonably be considered a
that much of the
violation of
screen.
the speech or
Plus, I
debate
tried
clause?
to add the chat up on the screen for
I
some
do
of the
not, and I
platforms
want to
it'll
be
come
clear
to.
that the
No,
toll
You were
records-
collecting months worth of phone data on the Republican Speaker of the House, the leader of the opposition, right after he got sworn in as Speaker, all around the time of a major vote. That sounds like a flagrant violation of the speech or debate clause to me, and I think most people agree with me. And Speaker McCarthy had no recourse, did he?
Really,
Because
they
you
put the
issued
camera on
a
the
non-disclosure
person
order
asking.
ensuring
There
that
they are,
neither
way over
he
there.
nor
They
any
left.
of the American people knew about these subpoenas. Is that right?
There they go.
The
They're
toll
finally
record, the
zooming in.
non-content toll record subpoenas, we did secure non-disclosure orders for those subpoenas.
You
because
did,
of
and
the
let me
risk
ask
of
you,
those
Mr.
disruptions.
Smith, at the time you secured those non-disclosure orders, was Speaker McCarthy a flight risk?
The non-disclosure order was based on concerns about
Was Speaker
obstruction.
McCarthy a flight risk?
He was not.
He was not. Then why did your non-disclosure order
Chat's a little
refer to him
slow
as a
filling
flight
in today.
risk? It says right here, the court finds reasonable grounds to believe that such disclosure will result in flight from prosecution.
Sir, when securing a non-disclosure order, the risks don't have to be
You
associated.
think that
with
the Speaker of the House is a flight risk?
question?
No, this is not your time. This is my time. You think the Speaker of the House is a flight risk? You think he's going to hop on a plane and leave the country?
No, what I was trying to explain is with respect to a non-disclosure order, the risks aren't necessarily associated with the subscriber to the phone. They're the risks to the
Okay.
investigation.
I think that you were using, this was clearly in reference to Speaker McCarthy, and you were using clearly false information to secure a non-disclosure order to hide from
Hey,
Speaker
John.
McCarthy and from the American people the fact that you were spying
Tried
on
to
his toll
change it so
records.
that
But I've got
chat
more,
would come up.
so
It
let's
should-
move on.
Yep, it does.
In May of
come up on the
2023, you
right.
also issued subpoenas for toll records of 9 U.S.
I
senators
gotta see if I
and an
can
additional
change it
representative.
next
Is that
time.
right?
It cuts off my face down at the bottom, but that's okay.
In May of
You know I'm
23,
ugly.
we did issue.
You did, and there were non-disclosure
I can't
orders
seem
in
to
conjunction with
reposition
those subpoenas
myself.
as well,
not
right?
while I'm already
That's
going.
correct, consistent with
You know?
department policy and
Right.
the law.
So again, nobody would know what you were doing. The senators
I'll
would,
see
and
if
the
I can change it
representatives
in
would, and the
the
American people
future.
wouldn't know what you were doing. Is that right?
The toll records that we secured and the non-disclosure orders were consistent with policy and
And
consistent.
you
with
knew
any
whenever you were
statute.
doing that there was a risk you were violating the speech or debate clause. Is that right?
The toll record subpoenas that we secured were with the concurrence of the public integrity.
Your own analysis says that you knew there was a risk you were violating the speech or debate clause. I have it right here. This is an email from John
They didn't
Keller,
care.
the
They
Public
thought they'd be in
Integrity
power
Section, to
forever.
your team. As you are aware, quote, as you are aware, there is some litigation risk regarding whether compelled disclosure of toll records of a member's
So the way I
legislative
got it
cause
set up, the
violates
chat
the
should
speech
show
or
up on
debate
the
clause in the
screen when
DC
anyone
Circuit.
comes
That's
in and
from
says
your own
hi or
analysis
whatever.
right there. So you did know,
At
didn't you?
least briefly.
Sir, with respect to the item you just put up on the screen, the last sentence states,
Oh, we're going to get to the
I
last
did
sentence.
post about an hour ago. I was going to.
Okay.
We're going to get to the last sentence. And you cite case law
This
and
is
you
a little
quote,
more
the
than 2
bar on
hours,
compelled
so-
disclosure is
Well, it's
absolute,
4,
is right?
but I'm gonna
Is that
cut
right,
out
or do
all
you
the
think that you didn't
crap,
have
you
to
know?
abide by that
Fast forward
precedent?
that.
to be clear, this statement is not from my office. This is the statement.
This
of
is
Public
this is
Integrity
your
Section.
justification for those subpoenas and NDOs that you ordered. This was part
Yeah,
of
he is
your
lighting his
analysis. It's a
butt off.
cursory analysis. I think it's worth noting.
It-
But let's get to that last sentence then. Quote, given my understanding of the low likelihood that any of the members listed below would be charged, the litigation risk should be minimal here. In other words, you're using a novel legal theory, which you knew was novel, has never been tested by any court. You're not charging any of these members. Nobody's going to know about it because you issued
Say hi when you
NDOs.
get in. We'll
Nobody's
see
going
on
to
the
sue about it,
screen.
so sue this. So who cares? We're going to do it anyways. I You walked all over the Constitution throughout this entire
Mr.
process.
Chairman, the gentleman's time's
spying
expired.
on members of Congress, and you know it. It's absolutely
Time.
disgraceful.
The
I
time,
yield back.
gentleman yields back. Not going to be charged. They're not going to see it. They're not going to know because we're not going to tell them. So let's go ahead and do it. It's exactly what happened. The gentleman from Tennessee is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Smith, it's great that you've been allowed to come here and testify to the American public. Is there anything you'd
Yeah,
like
I'm here.
briefly
Just-
to
it's cutting
discuss
off
that
my
Mr.
head.
Gill brought up on the reasons
okay,
why
you can
you
see my
needed those
flag.
phone records and the limitations that you thought might have been on you and the prosecution
Yeah,
of
a
the
few
risk,
more
because of
popping in. They
the
haven't
risk
said
of the
hi, but-
investigation?
Sure. And I would begin by pointing out that the email that was referenced wasn't a justification from my office. It was an email from the Public Integrity Section to my office approving the subpoenas. The subpoenas that we secured with non-disclosure orders from a judge because I had grave concerns about obstruction of justice in this investigation, specifically with regards to Donald Trump. Not only did we have the obstruction of justice that we were investigating in the classified documents case, but I was aware during the course of our investigation of targeting of witnesses
I
during the
posted
course
a
of the
thing.
conspiracy itself.
It's not going
There
live
were
to
election
LinkedIn.
workers
I
who
posted a
had their
link
lives
to
turned upside
Rumble,
down
and I think I
and
I
received
thought I did.
vile death threats because they were targeted by Donald Trump and his co-conspirators.
Oh,
I
he
had a duty
targeted
to
death
protect
threats
witnesses in
at
this
bull crap.
investigation. That risk, that threat to witnesses was only confirmed when we went
So
forward
that's why
in
they
this
had to go
case
through all the
and
Congress's
Donald Trump
people's
suggested that
records
one
and
witness should be put
listen
to
in on
death
them and everything.
and then
spy
also
on 'em.
issued a statement to the effect of, if you come after me, I'm coming after you. In my mind, I can't think of a more direct threat to witnesses
Oh, you
and
should see
individuals
everything the
involved in
left
that
says.
proceeding. Given that sort of threats, it was, in my view, completely appropriate to protect the integrity of the
Wish they had the
investigation,
camera on
to
who's
protect
talking
against
all the time.
destruction
This
of
is Jack
evidence, and
Smith
to
talking at the
protect
moment.
the witnesses in our case.
And just make clear, you did not see any of the discussion. There was not any, it was just the content that they made a call to the president and vice versa, but
Oh,
nothing
there
about
it
any
is up on the
content
other
whatsoever.
screen. This is a leftist.
That's-
I'm going to go a little faster.
Is their case? I came to the conclusion we had, and I came to the decision to bring charges in this case, was elected president with.
I think you're a great American and you came out of this.
Yeah.
Working for the United States Attorney's Office
There we
for the
go.
Eastern District of New York. Is that when you first met Marshall Miller?
Yes.
So after ED New York, did the two of you ever work together again prior to becoming special counsel? According to the public bios, for you and Mr. Miller, you overlapped at DOJ from 2014-15 when you were
Okay,
chief of
I posted
DOJ's
about
Public Integrity Section, and Mr.
3
Miller
o'clock my
was
time.
chief of staff for
be about
DOJ's
2
Criminal
o'clock your
Division.
time, I think.
Is that accurate?
I
Maybe
believe
I
that
should
is
start doing it
accurate,
more
yes.
than an hour
Okay,
ahead.
so,
You know, if someone
were
clicks
the
on
two
the
of you
link, it
social
sits there for
outside
a
of
couple
work?
hours. Sometimes I'll put a little
I would say
short video up
intermittently.
there, but that'll
Yes.
play that in a
Okay,
loop,
but after
you know?
20 years of knowing each other, it's safe to say you were friends, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so let's fast forward to 2022. Mr. Miller is appointed Principal Associate Deputy Attorney General at DOJ, the number 3 at DOJ. You call your friend
Well,
and
hopefully a few more
congratulate him, and
people
according to the
pop in.
deposition transcript, you say you'd be interested in a position at DOJ. Is that correct?
Yes. What I recall is that I expressed an interest if the right position came up, I would be interested in
But
considering.
at that point, there's no discussion about special counsel. Is that correct?
This is some time ago, and so I don't have a specific recollection of all these
But
conversations.
you should hear how many
So you were
times he
first
couldn't
approached
remember.
about special counsel and that
It's a
role
normal thing you
before
go-
the
they
22
do to,
midterm elections.
Conservatives when they
And according
try
to the
to
deposition
prosecute.
transcript, in
I wonder why
October
Facebook
of
links don't
2022,
come
you
through.
fly to DC,
'Cause I
meet
know
with
there's
the
some
AG
comments over there.
and the Deputy Attorney General. Is that correct?
Yes, I flew to
see
DC,
it on
I
my-
believe it was in
my phone.
October, and I met the Deputy Attorney General, and also I met the Attorney General.
So in multiple conversations with your friend Marshall Miller, he never once tipped you off that the Attorney General or Deputy Attorney General have you on the short list for special counsel? That never came up?
Watch him
Again,
lie.
this was some time ago, but my recollection is I came to Washington and I met with those individuals as well as the Human Rights Section, Marshall Miller is the person who set that up.
So he was at the meetings. Was he at the meetings? So just to tie all this together, you've known Mr. Miller since you were both AUSA in New York. You stayed in touch over a 20-year career in federal government. He gets a job with the Biden administration, and just a few short months later, you're offered the role of special counsel. I'm having a hard time believing that this is some big coincidence and that there wasn't a back and forth on the special counsel.
Can't understand
So-
why I'm saying.
Maybe you never received directives explicitly from the AG or the
You're talking
Deputy
about
Attorney
me or the-
General, but was Marshall Miller, did he become a two-way
John, are you talking about me or the testimony?
conduit throughout the investigation with DOJ?
No, and I would not take direction from a political person, a political figure about how I should conduct an investigation.
But you never spoke to him throughout the entire time you were conducting the investigation?
No, I didn't say that. What I said was
Okay.
that he was, I think you asked if he was a conduit of information. He was present, to my recollection, at meetings, briefings that I had with the Attorney General and Deputy Attorney
Does it help if I pause it, John?
General during my time as special counsel.
I mean, I don't want to assume anything, but Mr. Miller wanted you in that position, not because you're necessarily the best lawyer he ever met, but because of the long-term friendship that you have with him.
What I can tell you
Is my volume low or is the recording volume low?
is I have been a prosecutor for 30 years. I have been an apolitical public servant for 30 years. I've prosecuted cases against Democrats and Republicans, all the same. I've had, in my view, the experience
Bull crap. He's always gone after Republicans.
necessary for this position, and that's why I accepted it.
So
Okay.
he knew that you would pursue, I mean, he had to have an idea that you would pursue exactly what the Biden administration wanted, which was criminal charges against President Trump.
I think that anybody who knows me well knows the idea that I would take direction from a political figure about how an investigation should come out.
Hi, Colin. We're going to watch this lying piece of crap all day.
I don't think anybody who knows me thinks that's
Well, Chairman Jordan, I think the next deposition should be with Marshall Miller at this point. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. The gentleman from Georgia is recognized.
And while we are deposing Marshall Miller, maybe we can depose Donald Trump about why he chose his personal lawyer to be the head of the DOJ. On January 6, 2026, the 5th anniversary of the insurrection, the White House launched a taxpayer-funded website that attempts to rewrite history about what happened on that day of infamy.
Oh, here's another leftist.
On
I'm gonna
January,
fast
Sahel
forward this
police
crap.
sufficient to prove
of that.
Entrapment operation exposed Biden
Look at them hold
prosecutor
the signs up
who
behind him.
brought, quote, accusations that the council to conduct a politically
They were dismissed without prejudice.
January 6, 2021, the center into in.
And I don't recall the specifics of how that was done.
You don't remember who swore you in?
I don't.
Let me
Would
go
you
back
agree
one
that
second.
The specifics of it.
So can you tell me about your swearing in or the oath of office that you took
This
after
is
that?
This part's important. It's real important about him swearing in. That they were in such a rush, they didn't even swear him in. They didn't swear him in until like a year later. And he's kind of really dodgy on trying to answer this.
I don't recall the specifics of it. I know I was sworn in. I don't recall the specifics of how that was done.
You don't remember who swore you in?
I don't.
Would you agree that taking the oath of office is a legal requirement for the job that you had?
I've taken oaths of office regularly. I haven't researched whether it's required or not, but I've done that, I think, in every government case.
It is required. Terms I heard earlier today were atypical, irregular, no proper procedure. Yet in your opening statement, you said that we followed Justice Department policies, and I would assume you meant the law as well. It strikes me as odd that you don't remember who swore you in, how you were sworn in. It's pretty significant. We all get sworn in here, and I remember every day. You don't remember who swore you in.
I don't remember the details of it as I sit here today.
But you did take the oath of office before you got rolling.
I think my recollection is it was when I was appointed.
It was when, it strikes me as odd that Attorney General Garland had you retake the oath of office on the 14th of September of the following year. Why did he make you do that?
As I sit here right now, I do not recall. I know that there is the oath of office that I signed. I believe it was on the 18th, the day that I was appointed. And I know the department had me do a second one. I don't know the particulars of why they asked me to do it again, but
Well,
I know
you signed it on the 20th of November 22nd, November 2022, but there was no witness, which, I mean, you have to agree, it's a little odd if there's no witness saying that you took the.
You're right, Colin. He's trying to word it just right so he doesn't get caught, but still get away with lying. So a lot of it is, oh, I can't remember this or that.
The oath of office. It would maybe make someone like me question whether or not you were legitimately doing the job.
He's doing his best to perjure without getting caught for doing perjury.
Until you finally took the oath of office. It sounds like the Attorney General had the same question and thought, oh shit, we got to have him sign this on the 14th day of September of the following year. So why did you take the oath of office again on the 14th of September of the following year when you say you took the office in November of 2022? Why'd you need to do it twice?
my recollection is that I took the oath of office, as you said, it was the 18th or the 20th, and felt I was under the oath of office. I believe, if you have it in front of you, I think I signed an oath.
You signed it, but there was no witness. There was supposed to be either notarized or a witness. And apparently Attorney General Garland thought it was significant enough to have you do another oath 11 months later. That's strange, right?
I don't know why they asked me to sign it again. I don't recall ever discussing this issue with Attorney General Garland.
Well, that is just.
Now watch, when he supposedly signed it, it's like backdated, no witnesses, no notary public or anything, notary, nothing. It was all set up later. They wanted to get him in there so fast to get Trump,
Wild to me. I'd like to yield the balance of my time to Mr. Jordan.
Well, which one was the official one? Which one counted? I think that's what the gentleman's asking.
I understood myself to have taken the oath of office when I assumed the job.
How much money did you? Okay, how much money did you spend in the investigating President Trump? How much money did your office spend?
I do not recall as I sit here now, but I know that pursuant to, I believe it's the special counsel regulations, reports were issued each 6 months detailing how much.
We gathered at $35 million. And what I want to know is how much of that $35 million of taxpayer money did you give to confidential human sources?
He doesn't want to answer this. He doesn't want to say who he gave it to and what for. He's going to try everything to get out of this, So they were trying to pay people to lie against Trump.
We know you gave $20,000 to someone. It just got reported last week. How much more money did you pay confidential people we don't know about, with American tax money going after the guy we elected president?
My recollection regards the $20,000, which was not a payment from me. It was me approving a payment by the FBI to a confidential human source who was reviewing video and photographic.
Who's the source?
I do not know the identity of the source.
How many other payments went to this source or other sources?
As I sit here, I do not know the answer to that.
He's not going to answer any of this because it would they'd be the strings they need to pull on to find out the truth.
That question, my role as special counsel,
$35 million.
It's going to be a left-wing smear job thing, outfit.
And you're giving money to people the country doesn't know who they are, and you're giving their hard-earned money to these folks? The main question I have too with this is why'd you have
Right, never a straight answer. This whole day, you should see him catching him with when he was spying on all Congress people and stuff like that. They were getting into all this stuff with no warrants or nothing for any of that.
to do it? You subpoenaed bank records from the RNC, phone records from members of Congress. You got subpoenas for bank records for people sitting right there in the front row. Why did you have to pay people for information when you could subpoena them and get it?
Time has expired.
Time has expired. You can answer the question now. Country'd like to know why you had to do it.
My recollection and understanding is the payment, the $20,000 that I approved, was for a confidential human source to assist in the review of video and photographic evidence showing people.
Colin, we could all take turns slapping him until he tells the truth.
People who were attacking the Capitol, attacking police officers, obstructing the proceeding, and seeing if we could prove that some of those people had come directly.
That wasn't my question, but my time has expired. The gentleman from California is recognized.
Mr. Smith, I want you to have the utmost confidence of Trump because
no,
to a grand jury and gold standard. Attorney General Garland's request to be a special prosecutor. Do you remember where you were on January 6th?
Following things as
Well, I think that's Eric
I was not.
Stilwell or whatever his face is.
And tested in context. And you did so while disregarding long-standing
Can we go
Department
back
of
10
Justice
seconds?
cycle, enormous discretion, minimal oversight, and a mandate that goes to the law. But at one point, you were one of the most powerful prosecutors in the federal system, armed with enormous discretion, minimal oversight, and a mandate that goes to the very heart of our constitutional order. You brought charges during an active election cycle. You relied on legal theories that had never before been tested in context. And you did so while disregarding long-standing Department of Justice policies designed to prevent prosecutors from influencing elections. Mr. Smith, you claimed in your investigation you developed proof beyond a reasonable doubt that President Trump engaged in criminal scheme to overturn the results in the 2020 election and to prevent lawful transfer of power.
Yeah.
However, a few weeks ago in Georgia, Fulton County election board officials stated that 315,000 ballots were certified without required signatures on the tabulator tapes for poll.
Yeah, the one asking the questions, he's up on this screen here. I don't know if you can see my mouse right there.
Workers. These signatures were required by the Georgia statute. If not,
I'll try to scan through all the crap.
Not counted, this could have turned the state of Georgia red, and I won't doubt there were similar schemes in many other states. You were illegally appointed to serve as special counsel since you were not confirmed by advance and consent Senate and stated in the appointments clause. You also issued an indictment against then President Biden's most formidable political opponent. The candidate was President Trump, and you issued a gag order for President Trump during a 2024 election cycle. This was a major violation of President Trump's First Amendment rights and a poor attempt to outright censor the leading political candidate. These actions were nothing short of election interference. 9 senators, including Senator Tuberville from my state of Alabama, and multiple Republican members of the House of Representatives had their phones subpoenaed, or their records subpoenaed. Some you seized their phones. Even then, Speaker of
Watch how he tries to get around this whole going after Republican-only phones and stuff.
the House, Kevin McCarthy, one of the highest ranking Republicans in the country, had his phone records subpoenaed, all for political gain. These subpoenas clearly violated the speech and debate clause. As John Keller of the DOJ's Public Integrity section addressed,
With a shovel. I think he talked then, John, with a shovel.
this issue in an email dated May 17th of 2023, DC Circuit President stated that the speech and debate clause, and the bar is this, bar on compelled disclosure is absolute. These instances are not only the tip of the iceberg about you and your team's flagrant disregard of the Constitution. Mr. Smith, your actions have changed and damaged confidence in our justice system. Today, this committee will determine whether that damage was a result of reckless judgment, political bias, or or deliberate misuse of authority. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I'll yield you the balance of my time for questions.
I thank the gentleman for yielding. I want to go back to that email. If we could put that up, this email that Mr. Gill highlighted a few minutes ago. This is the justification from the public integrity section. If you look at the bottom, John Keller, public integrity section, for going and getting the phone records, toll records of members of Congress. And there's a couple of things I want to highlight. That first highlighted area, there is some litigation risk. So they admit there's some concern here. And they send this the copy to Jack Smith's team. And then
they were threatening like the AT&Ts and other phone companies to sick the FBI on them if they didn't cooperate.
And you go down later, as Mr. Gill pointed out, the case law is clear. A legislator may intervene and oppose such use. So the risk is real. But here's the deal. There was really no risk because we weren't going to know. They weren't going to tell us. They made sure they didn't tell us because they went to the judge and got a gag order. And look at the last sentence. The last sentence. Low likelihood that any of the members listed below would be charged. So they're not going to know because we're not going to charge any of these guys. They didn't do anything wrong. And so therefore, the litigation risk should be minimal. They're not going to be charged. We're not going to go after them. The litigation risk is minimal. And it's minimal because, frankly, it's non-existent because they're not going to know. And we're going to make sure they don't know because we're not even going to tell the judge who we're getting the gag orders on. And yet, Mr. Smith thought that was A-okay. That was just fine. That was in the letter and the spirit of the Constitution. I find that hard to believe. And you know why? You know why everyone knows it's wrong? Because the public integrity section at the Justice Department has now changed its policy. You can't do this anymore. They've changed their policy. But it was okay for Jack Smith to do it because we got to get Trump. We got to get the president. That's what this was all about. Yield back to the gentleman from Alabama.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
Mr. Chairman, I have some Mr. Chairman, I have a unanimous consent.
You're right,
request.
Colin.
Gentleman from New York is recognized.
All right,
Mr. Chairman, I ask unanimous consent to enter.
His response that they literally went in the Biden White House twice. Did President Biden or anyone appointee, if you're doing investigation records?
Tenure at the Department of Justice. Would you agree with the statement that DOJ...
Go back 10 seconds.
Mr. Smith, you have a long tenure at the Department of Justice. Would you agree with the statement that DOJ charging policies require prosecutors to bring charges only where the admissible evidence is expected to be sufficient to obtain and sustain a conviction? Is that right?
That is correct. That's from the federal principles of prosecution.
And in this case you brought against President Trump, one of the charges you pursued was under Title 18, Section 371, which requires an agreement to interfere with the lawful function of the United States through deceit or dishonesty that the defendant knowingly and intentionally joined, and an overt act. And what I'd like to ask you about is this. So you would agree that Section 371 requires dishonesty or deceit and also proof that a criminal defendant acted knowingly and intentionally. Is that right?
I believe that's correct. It requires knowing deceit targeted a lawful government function.
So you would then also agree, would you not, that opinion, disagreement, or even mistake is insufficient to satisfy the burden of criminal intent set forth in that statute?
How's he going to get out of this one?
A mistake certainly would. We needed to prove and intended to prove at trial that the false statements that Donald Trump made were knowingly false.
That they were false and that it was done knowingly. So even under your theory of the case, even if we took your facts as true, you still would have been required to prove that the president said something false and that he or did it knowingly. So going on to your next charge.
I'm not sure. Can everyone see the comments coming up on the screen over upper right there? You know, he's got his skew thing right there. That's making it a little harder to read. But can everyone see him up on the right there?
Let's talk about obstruction. There too, that charge requires proof of wrongful intent, does it not?
That's correct.
So if a defendant there actually believes a factual claim is true, that would mean he could not be convicted of that charge. Isn't that right?
Well,
Thanks, John.
Not correctly convicted.
The defendant for that charge would have to behave corruptly, and corruptly could include seeking an unlawful benefit, seeking a benefit to benefit themselves, in this case, to stay in office when they had in fact not won the election.
But there too, there's a requirement of intent that this conduct must be knowing and intentional. Isn't that right?
There is an intent requirement, yes.
And
corrupt
didn't you
intent.
also acknowledge in your deposition
Guy's head's in the way.
that the president was receiving information from multiple advisors? Giuliani, Eastman, Clark, Powell, and in your deposition, you said he was almost just regurgitating what they told him. Isn't that right?
I don't believe I said he was regurgitating what they told him. I think what I said is that he was making knowingly false claims, that he was believing anything that would keep him in office, and he was rejecting
But you
anything.
would agree that those people or some people were giving the president conflicting advice at that time. Would you not?
You are correct in that his original campaign staff told him he had lost. He fired them and brought in people who would.
But criminal liability under the statutes you used in your indictment requires proving intent, not simply the undermining of democratic norms or expressing an opinion with which you do not agree. So is it not correct, sir, that here you charged 2 intent-based crimes without any direct proof whatsoever that the conduct charged was knowing, intentional, or that you were going to have an adequate basis to sustain a conviction at trial?
I felt we had proof.
Remember, he sent Steve Bannon and another guy, and also that what was it? One reporter also all to jail for this reason.
Beyond a reasonable doubt, I felt that that proof included direct testimony from a number of witnesses to prove the knowing falsity of his claims.
Despite the fact that in your own deposition you acknowledge.
Now remember, Facebook and YouTube were taking people down, including myself, for claiming that the election was stolen. Or, in fact, I just did the thing on the election the other day, and Facebook cut me off and took it down, saying it was false information.
The existence of conflicting advice. If this defendant were anyone other than Donald J. Trump, Mr. Smith, I find it hard to believe that we would be sitting here today having a hearing about an indictment that was returned, knowing that the elements of the offenses could not be demonstrated. Now, let's talk about this. I assume you're also familiar with the Department of Justice policy that prohibits prosecutors from selecting the timing of investigative or prosecutorial actions for the purpose of affecting any election.
Yes, I am. That's the election year sensitivities policy, and we followed it in all respects. The public integrity section who administers that policy concurred that we followed it in all respects.
Mr. Chairman, my time has expired.
The gentlelady yields back. The chair recognizes the ranking member for UC.
Thank you kindly, Mr. Chairman. This is from John Dowd. I agree.
AT&T turned Kevin.
5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think it's our turn. Do you yield your time?
Lost track after all those unanimous consent requests. Gentlelady from Washington is recognized, and then the gentleman from North Carolina.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Smith, thank you for coming here today. Your willingness to speak directly to us and to the American people about your investigation is professional, is courageous. Hell on January to kill us right outside.
Left wing.
My Republican counts when all democracy, the toll on.
If we don't said this, I can't speak to hypothetical.
And patriotically, we would not have had a special. Well, had obeyed the instruction, go peacefully and patriotically, and make your voices heard. We would not be here. Isn't that correct?
Well, in that case, Donald Trump wouldn't have done many of the things.
I'm just I'm just asking. If they had gone peacefully and patriotically, we would not have had a special prosecutor. President Trump would not have been indicted. There would not have been, quote, the attack on the foundations of our democracy, correct?
Well, maybe you don't put like 250 FBI agents in the whole crowd to stir everything up and get inside the building and cause all this. It was all part of their plan.
That's a hypothetical, and I think it's a counterfactual hypothetical.
Well, and second point, in regards to what we just heard from my colleague from Washington, I think it's noteworthy that the vice president, despite the enormous toll that he has taken in these events, was against charging the president criminally in this case. But in regards to my own experience, Mr. Smith, I've charged many conspiracies. There's obviously a lot of benefit to that charge. It's a useful tool for fact-finding, scrutinizing evidence, figuring out exactly what happened, trying to form charges, trying to prove charges, trying to solidify the evidence. And in your case, sir, you've detailed, number one, the unprecedented criminal scheme, your words, not mine. In the press conference, you said there was an unprecedented assault on the seat of American democracy. Do you remember saying that?
I believe so, yes.
And in regards to your investigative authority, it was quite broad. We've already established that you had millions of dollars at your disposal. You had teams of lawyers. You had total subpoena power. You used campaign officials as witnesses. You subpoenaed millions of documents. You had civilian witnesses. You had political leaders. You had campaign officials that work with the president, folks who were in the room. And after all of this, sir, you charged a conspiracy, and notably absent, there was no insurrection charged. There was no seditious conspiracy charged. And there was only one defendant, correct? Donald Trump.
That is correct.
Pizza just got there. I didn't see it. I'm sure they're definitely going to have a lot.
Despite 6 co-conspirators identified in the indictment, only one person was charged. Is that correct?
Yes.
Colin, how much different is pizza in England than it is here in the United States?
Despite there being an unprecedented criminal scheme, you did not find it necessary to charge anybody else who was admittedly, by your own evidence, involved in a criminal conspiracy that amounted to an unprecedented assault on the seat of American democracy.
Yes, at the time of the conclusion of our work, my lawyers had determined, had believed that we did have proof to charge other people. I was in the process of making that determination when our work was concluded. But you are correct that the only person charged in this case was Donald Trump, who, in my estimation, was the person most culpable for the crimes charged.
Well, I understand your position, sir, but again, you started at the very top and only charged the top conspirator, in your opinion. You didn't charge anybody underneath him, correct?
Correct.
Despite that charge requirement, you would agree that a criminal conspiracy federally is a criminal agreement, correct?
Yes.
So by extension, people, under your theory, people besides the president were involved in the unprecedented assault on American democracy, but you didn't find it necessary to charge them criminally.
I had not yet charged anyone besides the president.
You didn't. You decided not to charge anybody but Donald Trump in that indictment.
Consistent with the federal principles of prosecution, which emphasize the degree of someone's culpability in making a charging decision, Donald Trump is the person that was charged.
I understand that. I understand your position, but you made the decision to charge one person and nobody else, correct?
I made the decision to make the charges in this case.
In regards to the way that the case handled from there, sir, I just want to...
He's being really careful how he answers that. Probably because they paid someone off to testify against him secretly.
Get this on the record. In regards to your press conference, politics played no role, correct?
That is correct.
The charges you brought, politics played no role, correct?
Correct.
The expedited trial date played no role. Politics played no role, correct?
I followed the facts and the law, department policy.
The speedy trial request, there was no role in politics, correct?
That's correct. Supreme Court precedent emphasizes that.
And even your brief that the court found atypical, politics played no role.
Mr. Chairman, the time has expired.
The time the gentleman's expired. The gentlelady from Pennsylvania is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Smith, for being here today. I believe it's important for the American people from some of these baseless conspiracy Trumps can
He admitted it was
Another leftist.
was
plan
had Donald Trump.
because it tells a very
Put them over the Constitution.
After Virginia Governor Bob McDonnell back in 2014, saying that your interpretation of the law, you're to a conviction of. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Smith, you've said several times in your deposition that
I'm
you
trying to
believe
scan
that
out all the
facts in
crap.
law, your interpretation of the law would lead to a conviction of President Trump. Is that correct?
Which is about half of this video.
Yes.
And did you believe that same thing, that your interpretation of the law, your reading of the law would have resulted in the conviction when you went after Virginia Governor Bob McDonnell back in 2014? Did you believe it at the time?
I did believe, and
ultimately you got a conviction in lower court, but that was overturned by the Supreme Court, correct?
yes, the Supreme Court changed the law on what constituted an official act. And
Actually,
as a
that's
result,
incorrect.
that conviction was overturned.
That's incorrect. They applied the law, and they said in their ruling, our concern is not with tawdry tales of Ferraris, Rolexes, and ball gowns. It's instead with the broader legal implications of the government's boundless interpretation of the federal bribery statute. A more limited interpretation of the term official act leaves ample room for prosecuting corruption while comporting with the text of the statute and the precedent of this court. They accused you of using a boundless interpretation of the federal bribery statutes. Now, did you believe when you went after John Edwards that you...
Colin, that sounds good, actually. Your stuff's made without the seed oil, so that's always good.
your interpretation of the facts and the law were correct and that you would convict John Edwards of corruption?
Yes.
But in fact, that case resulted in a jury deadlock on 5 charges and acquittal on another charge. Is that correct?
That is my recollection. That's correct.
Let's move on to the court's interpretation of your gag order requests. Mr. Smith, America was founded on the principle that the government doesn't silence political speech, in particular speech before it happens. You sought a prior restraint against President Trump without a single violation of pretrial release. In fact, there was no real-world harm that you could articulate justified giving the federal government the power to silence him as a presidential candidate, was there?
The court granted those motions and found that the prosecutor did not have to wait until someone was harmed to make such a motion.
Actually, the request was rejected when the case was actually, when you actually were not able to, it was restricted, correct? The gag order was restricted, correct?
Well, we filed for an order in the district court. The district court granted an order. President Trump appealed that order. The Court of Appeals absolutely agreed that there was a basis and that the threats to witnesses that came from the targeting by Donald Trump were real and that we had a duty to protect them.
Yeah,
You are correct.
Put a little more
in
into
that
it.
The Court of Appeals narrowed the order, so the order covered witnesses, court staff, the judge, and my staff. The difference was that it didn't cover me anymore, which I was fine with.
Did you have any evidence that President Trump's statements about the cases against him intimidated witnesses or prevented them from coming forward?
I had evidence that he said, if you come after me, I'm coming after you. He suggested a witness should be put to death. The courts found that those sort of statements not only deter witnesses who've come forward, they deter witnesses who have yet to come forward.
But you weren't able to.
Had someone put to death. What did he? This guy's ridiculous. And I'd say big and brown.
To identify a single witness who didn't come forward because they were intimidated by President Trump.
We had extremely thorough evidence that his statements were having an effect on the proceedings that is not permitted in any court of law in the United States.
Don't you think it's a pretty low bar to clear if you're trying to silence a candidate for president? I mean, if you can't identify a single witness who's intimidated, that maybe you should reconsider the gag order?
Both courts upheld the orders, and it is not incumbent on a prosecutor to wait until someone gets killed before they move for an order to protect the proceedings.
Did anyone on your team raise concerns that this expansive gag order you were seeking would infringe on President Trump's First Amendment rights?
My recollection is that we, of course, discussed First Amendment issues regarding this application because I and my staff respect the First Amendment, but the First Amendment does not allow one to make statements that interfere with the administration of justice in a judicial proceeding. My interpretation was supported and agreed upon by the district court and the Court of Appeals in terms of the phenomena of the statements being made, targeting individuals, causing threats to happen to them. I would also add, sir, that in the days
How many
after
pictures can they take? Holy
Donald Trump
crap.
made some of these statements, the district court, in this case, received vile threats to the district court's life. In that environment, I felt a duty as a prosecutor to make that motion, and I make no apologies.
And the court stayed that motion on August 3rd, 2024. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. I should have mentioned this a little bit earlier. Mr. Smith, if ever you need a break, if you need a restroom break, you or your counsel can just let us know. I think it's now the gentleman from Colorado gets 5 minutes.
Mr. Smith? Can they? Yep. Can we take a short break?
5-10 minute recess, then we'll be right back at it.
Probably have to regroup so he can lie better.
Problems with this today.
Imagine what he did on January 6th with that demeanor. Look at my demeanor. Complete professional here.
I don't know who was talking there. I don't know who was talking there.
Most of these former speaker houses also placed him by an alcohol. My name is.
Oh yeah, this guy ends up getting in a fight with this guy, the Nazi, fighting Nazis since 1996. This guy and this bald guy right here, where my mouse is behind the other one, they get in an argument. He deliberately sits almost right in front of him, intentionally. He tries to cause an issue. Because the guy with the bald head is the conservative, the other guy's a libtard. The bald-headed guy is the conservative, and this other guy right here is the liberal, libtard. Let me see if I kind of like Jim Jordan.
Meeting will come to order.
Mr. Chairman.
Witness will go ahead and take the stand. We want to make sure the Capitol Police remains in the room, just in case we have any other concerns.
Yeah.
General Lady from Washington is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a unanimous consent request.
General Lady is recognized.
This is an order of the D.C. Circuit dated December 8th, 2023, in which the court recognizes that Donald Trump's statements about the judge
Smith prosecution, perhaps the chairman, conduct related to state senators. What Smith is give you an opportunity to defend the Constitution.
Was new to amendment groups, correct? That case was tried. I wasn't.
So, Mr. Chairman, what we heard from the other side here is that this gentleman is the gold standard. Yeah, and that ended up, you processed, do you recall correctly?
Well, I did learn about issues. Yes,
from Wisconsin is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In 2010,
find the right
Mr.
spot.
Smith, did you work for the President Obama's Department of Justice?
Yes, in 2010, I was the
t-shirt,
chief of the public integrity section.
During that time, did you have any contact or connection with Lois Lerner with the Obama IRS?
Yes, I was new to the public integrity section. I was the chief. I was trying to learn about issues I had not been at.
Did you attempt to work with Lois Lerner and the IRS to investigate nonprofits?
What I did was I asked for a meeting.
They were going after all the pro-life things and any people that would go at these school board meetings. They were trying to arrest all of them.
With the IRS about nonprofits.
Oh, and they were using the IRS to go after people too.
So the simple answer is yes. Correct.
Well, I didn't ask to work with Ms. Lerner. They sent Ms. Lerner. That's the person who came to this meeting. I met her once.
And they went after Second Amendment groups, correct? If you remember correctly, that's what was the offshoot of it, that Second Amendment groups that tried to gain nonprofit status, they were slow rolled through the IRS. Do you recall that?
Separate from this, there was an investigation of that that I was a part
Yeah, I think it was part of the Capitol Police or something there, Tom.
of.
Did you-
Public integrity.
Did you, you prosecuted Virginia Governor Bob McDonnell, this was asked earlier, you prosecuted him, correct?
I was part of the prosecution, yes. There was,
And that ended up with that decision ended up being unanimously overturned by the Supreme Court, correct?
that is correct, sir.
Yeah, including Justice Ginsburg joined in on that opinion, correct?
I believe that's correct.
Yeah. You also prosecuted John Edwards and Bob Menendez, and those both ended in mistrials, is that right?
The John Edwards case did. The Menendez case, I had left the public integrity section by the time that case was tried. I wasn't.
So, Mr. Chairman, what we heard from the other side here is that this gentleman is the gold standard for prosecution here in the United States. So think about it. We had a witch hunt done by the IRS going after Second Amendment groups, unanimously overturned by the Supreme Court, prosecuted two prominent political figures, and they ended up as mistrials. That's the gold standard here in America. I would just say this, Mr. Chairman, if Mr. Smith ever works for the Department of Justice again, I would recommend a remedial course on the First Amendment to the Constitution. Before I yield the rest of my time, Mr. Smith, I just have one other question. Is there any historical precedent for an alternate slate of electors to be sent to Congress? Has that ever happened before?
That's a very good question. Watch them squirm. I'm trying to answer this one.
That had happened, not anything similar to this situation, but you're correct. It was in Hawaii. I think it was Hawaii in, I want to say the 1960 election.
So
It's actually happened many times.
has happened before that there was an alternate slate of electors that was sent to Congress, which does the electoral count, correct?
There was a prior time that an electoral slate was sent where there was litigation and recounts going on.
Actually, there's twice that it happened, Mr. Chairman. It happened in 1876 and
Yeah, mom and pop pizza's like your local pizza shop that just the owners, there's only one shop. It's not a chain, all that kind of stuff.
1960 that these alternate electors happened. I'd like to ask unanimous consent to introduce the 1960 Hawaii case.
Objection.
With that, I yield to the chairman.
I appreciate the gentleman yielding. The gentleman from Colorado talked about noise from this side. It's not noise, it's facts. The fact is you approved a $20,000 payment to a confidential human source. And I think you said earlier, the reason this individual or entity or person was paid was to review photo and video evidence. Why'd they have to be confidential? Why didn't you just contract with them?
My understanding is that this person was a confidential human source with the FBI. I do
Because they don't want you to know it was a leftist group doing it.
not know why they were confidential, but it would make sense to me, given that this person was assisting.
Well, confidential just raises the question of what were you trying to hide? Why not tell us? We know you hid the fact that you were getting phone records from members of Congress. We want to know why this payment had to be hidden. Why couldn't you just contract? Which would be the customary normal way, I think, of doing it.
I did not make the determination that this source would be confidential, but given that this person was working on an investigation involving attacks on the Capitol, and given the violence in that, it makes complete sense to me that the Bureau.
You know of any of the other special counsels who approved payments to, like I don't remember Robert Mueller approving payments to confidential human sources. I don't remember Durham. I don't remember her. We brought all those guys in front of the committee. It's the first time I've ever heard of a special counsel having to pay secret money to someone to get information when you had the broadest subpoena power you could possibly have. You aware of any of the other special counsels who had to do this?
I am not aware whether confidential sources were or were not used in those investigations.
That's because I don't think they were. I don't think they were.
I'm not aware one way or the other. I can say that the use of confidential human sources is a standard thing done by the Federal Bureau of Investigations.
The time of the gentleman from Wisconsin has expired. I now yield to the gentlelady from Georgia for 5 minutes, Ms. McBath.
Thank you, Chairman. And Mr. Smith, thank you for appearing today to speak publicly about the major issues that you handled as special counsel. Your work on election interference in my home state is especially important, as Georgia still today remains ground zero for voting rights. My state, which is
Donald
Trump. What I want to do is this. I just want to find
President
way is the powerful
signatures. You surely knew that you had.
From Arizona.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Smith, isn't it true that for a federal criminal conspiracy charge, it requires more than one individual? In other words, you're making a contractual agreement of some kind with somebody other than yourself, right?
That is correct. There has to be an agreement.
And so when you made the determination to charge President Trump with conspiracy, you surely knew that you had somebody else that he must have agreed upon somewhere to engage in this
Colin, this gets worse.
act that
Much
generated
worse.
the conspiracy, right?
When they really try to pin him down.
That's correct. We alleged specific individuals in the indictment as co-conspirators.
And so you knew who you were going to do who you were going to charge when you pursued the indictment. You knew who the agreeing parties were, but you chose to list them as co-conspirators, but you didn't indict them. How often have you done that in the past?
In the past, I have had a number of cases where I have charged some members of a conspiracy and not charged others.
One member of the conspiracy. How many times have you done that? Charged one member of the conspiracy and let everybody else off the hook?
I'm sure that's happened. That is not an.
You don't remember doing that?
That is not an uncommon thing to do in an investigation. In my view.
So okay.
Line his ass off.
I dispute that, but we're going to leave that as it may. But let's just get to this. If a member of Congress moves to decertify a state's electors, that would not be a crime, would it?
When you say to decertify.
You make a motion to decertify on that January 6th, that way every 4 years. That's not a crime, right?
Correct.
And if another elected official urged someone to join them in that decertification, that's not a crime either, right?
As you stated, it's not.
Several members of Congress get together over breakfast. They say, this is the normal path. We watched it because we saw the Democrats do it for every Republican president. So we're not sure how to do it. We've never done it before. That's not a crime to sit down at breakfast to talk about that, or any other time together to talk about decertification, is it?
No, it's not a crime to talk about that over breakfast.
In your deposition, you talked about, you made the argument that an elected official who's been deemed to have lost could not knowingly make false statements about election fraud to target a lawful government operation. Isn't that true? That's what you said in your deposition. Page 27.
I believe it's a lawful government function.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, lawful government function. That's what you said. You remember saying that?
I said lawful government function. Could you read back what you said again? I'm sorry.
Yeah. An elected official who's been deemed to have lost could not knowingly make false statements about election fraud to target a lawful government function. You said that would be illegal. Remember that page? Do you want me to actually read this back? Surely you remember that position.
I'm not denying it, and I apologize. I'm just trying to listen to you closely.
Okay, let's just go right from this.
He's stalling.
You said there's, as we said in the indictment, he was free to say that he thought he won the election, right?
That is correct.
He was even free to say falsely that he won the election, correct?
That's correct.
What you said is he was not free to do was violate federal law and use knowingly false statements about election fraud to target a lawful government function.
That is correct.
Yeah, and for you, that lawful government function is the certification process, I suppose, on January 6th.
Well, it's a slightly broader than that. It's the collecting, counting and certifying of the votes. Our view of the evidence is that begins from.
Yeah, he should have brought up Hillary and Nancy and all them on the whole. She tried to fight Trump in 2016, his election.
Point of time that the electors are certified.
She went after the electors in Michigan and other places.
Through the counting of the votes, so that would be.
So the entire certification process from the state to the feds.
My recollection, as it's pled in the indictment, as I sit here, I don't have it in front of me, but I believe it's from December 14th. I think that was the day through the voting.
Okay, so you can't recall, but for you, it's from the certification moving forward to the actual ratification of the certification process on inaugural day.
My recollection, that's what we.
That's a good idea, a polygraph test. I don't think they're 100%, but they're high up there in the percentage.
Pled in the indictment. Yes.
Okay.
He'd probably be sweating so much he'd be getting electrocuted.
So you've managed to filibuster us right out of this thing, but your beef was, you said that President Trump engendered a level of distrust. You said he made false statements to state legislators, to his supporters of all sorts, and somehow you discerned that his supporters were angry and that was somehow related to a criminal offense. I find that absolutely weak. I think it's misdirected.
Was it because we got pissed off about it, them stealing the election, then they can put him in jail for that?
Directed, and
Time of the gentleman's expired. Gentleman yields back.
Mr. Chair, I ask unanimous consent to enter into the record Axios dated August 2nd, 2023. Box
of
rioters
and be wild. Video
is a defense 87 of the spec. Even a tweet from quote, that's.
Did you target my records?
Here we go. This part's good.
Thank you very much. The gentleman from Texas.
This part's real good.
Thank you, Chairman.
Listen
Mr.
up
Smith,
on-
how many members of Congress or the Senate did
This part is real good. Listen up on this one.
you subpoena phone toll records?
As I sit here right now, I do not recall a specific number.
Is this the complete list right here? Let me ask you this. Am I on this list? Did you target my records and subpoena my phone toll records?
My understanding is your records were subpoenaed by prosecutors before I became special counsel.
Well, staff would put this up on the screen. I'm thankful for the great staff who discovered the email where I learned for the first time a few weeks ago that my phone records were indeed targeted. We called AT&T and we've learned that they were given to the Department of Justice, as this email indicates, because I had been in communication with Scott Perry, one of my colleagues here in Congress, who literally had his phone taken from him in front of his family. And of course, we've already talked about in this document, it talks about you could be in violation of the privilege by even obtaining and possessing this information if the member objected to the disclosure.
The question is why? And why was it only Republicans?
This happened 4 years ago in May of 2022, and I couldn't object because I didn't know. I didn't know until about 3 weeks ago. My question here is, was there any limits to your investigation or the investigation that preceded you, Mr. Smith? Because as egregious as a violation of separation of powers this is, as an egregious and abuse of power it is, it's far more concerning you are clearly targeting American citizens for merely being conservative or supporting the president. We've got memos that we've already been talking about in this hearing from April 2022 that preceded you that established and opened the investigations, one of which has Attorney General Merrick Garland's signature on it. And the focus was the electors. Now that was 6 months before you were appointed. You testified earlier, you met and interviewed Merrick Garland and Deputy AG Lisa Monaco, and you briefed the AG and Deputy multiple times. Did you brief them on the electors and the prosecution of their supposed crimes?
Did I? I'm sorry.
Did you brief them on the electors and their supposed crimes?
I don't recall specific conversations, but I'm sure that in the course of briefing them,
It wasn't that the purpose of the...
Colin, could you imagine how much they actually do get away with that we're not haven't found out? That's probably 10 times worse than this.
Entire investigation as it was set out? Because putting aside that in 1960, as we already talked about, my friend Mr. Tiffany, that Hawaii put forward an alternate slate of electors, the investigation pivoted to President Trump and frankly, anybody who knew him. Do you know who Cleta Mitchell is?
Yes, I do.
She's an election lawyer that was involved in filing an election contest on behalf of President Trump in Georgia in December of 2020. A 64-page complaint with over 1,100 pages of exhibits, witness affidavits, and expert witness reports documenting thousands of votes cast in violation of Georgia law, but which were nevertheless included in the vote totals. Now, notwithstanding the disposition of the cases that was filed, is that a criminal act? Filing an election contest on behalf of a candidate for office, a client. Is that a criminal act, yes or no?
No, in fact, we
So
stated.
why did you deem it appropriate to monitor Cleta Mitchell's long-distance phone records in 2023, 2.5 years after the election contest was
2.5 years after the fact, they started going after the people that were trying to help Trump straighten this out. Going after law firms. They were going after everybody. The January 6ers, they put in jail, the 2,500 that they put in jail. If Kamala Harris had gotten elected, they had a list of another 2,500 that were going to try to put in jail. People that didn't even go inside the building. Some that were not even in D.C.
filed and after the presidential electors were certified. What about Jen Ellis? What about Sidney Powell? What about Bill Sepien? What crime did you suspect had been committed by them that would warrant monitoring their phone records?
They went after every single one of them. Anyone that would defend Trump.
2.5 years after the 2020 election was certified.
And they went after the Facebooks and YouTubes and Facebook type things, social media companies. If any of them would allow anyone to post anything in defense of Trump for the election against them stealing it.
With respect to Sidney Powell, she is one of the co-conspirators alleged in the indictment. I don't know.
Now, Congress has no power to go after this guy, but I hope it does end up causing them to go after him, him. And getting it in the light of day teaches us a lot. Sort of like the way we eventually whittled away on them using the jab against us.
Know what you mean by monitoring, sir, if you're talking.
Well, there were some 400 plus Republican conservative groups and leaders who were targeted by your investigation. Their financial records were obtained, records of the RNC, the Trump campaign, Cleta Mitchell, the Conservative Partnership Institute, the America First Policy Institute, NRCC, NRSC, PACs, conservative groups, people all across the country, citizens, because we hear a lot about members of Congress. And we should, because of separation of powers and the egregious abuse of power. But what we're not talking about enough, in my opinion, are the American citizens that have been targeted. Because frankly, are there any limits to the power of a special prosecutor or special counsel? So much so in your abuse of power that in the summer of 2024, the indictment involving classified documents was dismissed after determining your appointment violated the Appointments Clause of the Constitution, but you continued to sign your name on court filings until the time you resigned from office in January of 2025. A federal judge just recently stated a prosecutor who continues to sign his name in court filings after a disqualification order should face disciplinary action or disbarment. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back.
The gentleman have the opportunity to respond?
If the gentleman wants to respond, he can.
With respect to the last point, Judge Cannon's order specifically limited her finding to that proceeding. So there would be nothing improper about
You're right, John. They went after Beverly and Beebe more than 2.5 years after the fact on the abortion clinic thing, crap. They went after her, put her in jail. Thank heavens Trump got elected and pardoned her. It's ridiculous. They were going after conservative Christians. They wanted, especially white Christians,
continuing to litigate the cases in Washington, D.C. and with respect.
I totally forgot about Tina Peters. They used state law to put her in jail, and they've framed her for a fight now while in there. She was getting close to getting out. They're trying to keep her in there till she dies.
Respect to Florida, there was nothing improper about taking an appeal of that very decision.
The gentlelady from Vermont is recognized for 5 minutes.
Wow.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Smith, I want to discuss Volume 2 of your report, which summarizes the findings of your investigation into President Trump's hoarding of classified documents at Mar-a-Lago and his efforts to obstruct the FBI's investigation. Mr. Smith, is it...
Yeah, they were trying to cause fear. I got to fast forward this because of idiots on there.
Is that correct? handles people 5 times.
I'm not going to be, they've been ordered to.
Campaign speech on. Thank you.
From the council, at least a dozen people tied to the House Intelligence Committee and officials see. I've got a UC request.
Gentlemen, ranking members recognized for UC.
Thank you kindly, Mr. Chairman. The first is a New York Times article titled "Hunting Leaks, Trump DOJ Officials Seized Records of Democrats," explaining how the Trump administration subpoenaed Apple for data from the council of at least a dozen people.
No, is it's you to treat everyone the same, Republicans and Democrats, liberals and conservatives, but that wasn't the case. We don't expect it's all a Democrat. It's much more than how much people like or hate you, or like or hate Donald Trump, or like or hate Republicans, or like or hate Democrats. This is about the system. It's about what the Department of Justice did. It's about what you did. The core of the hearing is all about, can Americans still trust the justice system? Is it fair? Was it fair under you? And all they expect, they don't expect you to be perfect, but they expect you to treat everyone the same, Republicans and Democrats, liberals and conservatives, but that wasn't the case. When you treat people differently because of their political status, their political party, their ideals, that's hypocrisy.
Oh, I can see now.
And I'm sorry to say, and I don't say it lightly, I do consider you to be a hypocrite. With that being said, you know, I think the prosecutors and the people around you stretch norms, change standards depending upon who was under investigation. So you don't like Donald Trump, and so you're a liberal Democrat, whatever the case may be. And they went after him. And by the way, it's interesting, in all those congressional records that were subpoenaed, all those congressional records that were looked at, was one of them a Democrat?
Good question.
No. The answer is no. I'll answer for you. So
it was a good question.
Well, I got simple questions. I always say I'm a simple guy, but it really boils down to this. How much can Americans trust this system? In your special counsel report, you stated President Trump engaged and was guilty of criminal conspiracies, and he was
Tammy.
Guilty of criminal conduct, and you publicly testified you believed you had the proof, etc. If prosecutors deal this way with cases, if they declare that it's guilty and it's over before a jury verdict, would Americans trust the justice system more, or would they?
The other thing they do is they take a lot of these cases, like against Trump, they'll deliberately take him to court, say know damn well they're going to win. Look at Lucretia James with Trump in the New York courts and the D.C. courts.
They trust the system more. The answer, go ahead, answer, please answer.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand what you were asking me.
So when this was all going on, before, and I believe it was political, before there was an entire case and we went through the whole case, you pretty much declared, and I'm not going to read the whole thing through again, that President Trump was guilty. That wasn't your job. That's a judge's job. It's a jury's job. It's not your job. Don't you think that's unfair, that that's wrong, that didn't make the playing field level? Did it make people less trustworthy of the system? Yes or no?
No. When I announced the charges in the election case, I specifically stated that the case needed to be tried and that he had a right to go to trial and he was presumed innocent.
And thank you for, I just want a simple answer because we are limited on time. I disagree with you. I don't think you did. Your office secretly subpoenaed and got records of members of Congress. And you kept those subpoenas hidden through non-disclosure orders. That's wrong. They should have known. You want to do that, fine. It's wrong. Number one, it's wrong because people have a right. The American public has a right to know. The elected officials have a right to know.
Good point, Tammy.
It's your right to subpoena them, but they should know. Secondly, and I brought this up before, not one Democrat, it's all Republicans, all Republicans. Everything you've done, everything you've ever done is always against Republicans. Do you think that puts more trust in the system when you're so partisan in that way? Yes or no?
No, politics played no role in our.
Oh, he's lying his ass off again. He's never taken a case. He drops all the cases against the Democrats and always goes after the Republicans, including Trump.
Investigation. I have prosecuted Republicans and Democrats throughout my career. I have dismissed cases against Republicans and Democrats.
Because you didn't have the proof.
Try to name one Democrat he's ever gone after.
If prosecutors routinely rely on...
Maybe a Democrat that stepped out of line and didn't toe the Democrat line. That's what it was.
On politically imbalanced investigations, and by this,
hey, Gregory,
I mean, let me appeal to your sense of fairness. You're saying you're a fair man. We had a January 6th committee, select committee, that was appointed only by a Democrat, the then Speaker, Nancy Pelosi. Everybody on it was a Democrat, except 2 Republicans that hated Republicans. Was that fair? Was that fair?
Wow.
I mean, look at our system.
That sounds nice there. We're down in the low, like 4, 5, 6 degree neighborhood, and it's going to get colder here.
System here in Congress, we've got Democrats, man, they speak up. You've got Republicans, we speak up. You hear both sides. That's the way a select committee should be. And you based everything upon this biased, unfair, prejudiced system. How is that fair? Tell me how that's fair.
That's not correct. We conducted an independent investigation.
You based a lot on that commission. You got all their records.
That's not correct. We did collect their records. We conducted our own independent investigation following the facts and the law. The
and you used a lot of their information
to try to see how they could use it to get Trump.
Mr. Smith, I don't mean to cut you off. I've got limited time. Joe Biden took classified records that were not to be taken when he was vice president and when he was Senate. And I know you didn't deal directly with that case.
Mr. Chairman?
But nevertheless, he did. Is that fair? Because he let him go, don't do anything to him. But on the other hand, when it's President Trump who did it as president, then there was, you raided Mar-a-Lago. Is that fair?
I'm the gentleman.
Mr.
Gentleman's part of this.
Well, I'd like him to answer.
If the witness would.
15 inches, huh?
I have no response.
It's damn unfair. That's the answer.
We've got UC requests.
UC request from the gentlelady from California.
Yes, I have a unanimous consent request. I ask unanimous consent to enter into the record the government's sentencing memorandum for Capitol rioter Cody Mattis, who said that, quote, when the former president asked his supporters to march on the Capitol, it was not a call peacefully and patriotically.
Insurrection. Does pardon in the future. I do not understand why you would mass pardon people who assault for billionaires and big if you back your part. With regard to the toll records, that is, again, as I mentioned earlier today, a standard part of
one. Under the Biden-Harris DOJ, you weaponized the law, President Trump.
From Texas, Mr. Nels is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Smith, I'll just cut right to the chase here. Your investigation and attempted prosecution of President Trump, it wasn't about justice. It was about politics.
Yeah, I'm here.
Politics. From day one, under the Biden-Harris DOJ, you weaponized the law to go after their top political opponent. You push flawed legal theories, and even the far left Washington Post called you out. They called you out, sir, for violating the First Amendment. You tried to criminalize political speech, slap unlawful gag orders on a presidential candidate, and spy on Republican members of Congress in violation of the speech or debate clause, including the sitting Speaker of the House. Mr. Smith, you mishandled documents, pressured defense lawyers, and dumped a massive trove of so-called evidence right before the election. And you did it.
I'm worried about him losing the
to sway
House.
voters. That's why you did it. And don't get me started on that raid at Mar-a-Lago or your unconstitutional appointment, which a federal judge in Florida rightly tossed out. A very bad day for you. This wasn't, Mr. Smith, about upholding the law. It was about tearing down President Trump and anyone close to him. You even tried to ram through a politically motivated final report after your cases collapsed, including the Presidential Transition Act and basic fairness. But here's the good part, America. Here's the good part. The American people saw right through it. They rejected, sir, your witch hunt loud and clear in November, handing President Trump a commanding victory. The voters spoke loud and clear. They wanted an end to the weaponization of our justice system. In your opening statement, you spoke about proof of beyond a reasonable doubt. Mr. Smith, I will give you proof beyond a reasonable doubt. Donald Trump winning the popular vote by over 2 million votes. The Electoral College by 85 votes, along with every single swing state. Now, sir, that is proof beyond a reasonable doubt that the crap you were shoveling did not pass the smell test with the American people. To put it bluntly, Mr. Smith, the stink remains on you. And lastly, I would like to quickly address the police officers of January 6th. Mr. Dunn, Mr. Fanone, Mr. Gonell, Mr. Hodges. I'm a member of the new select committee to actually examine what happened that day. And I can tell you, gentlemen, that the fault does not lie with Donald Trump. It lies with Yogananda Pittman and the U.S. Capitol leadership team. We know.
This guy with all the tattoos, he ends up getting in a fight with that bald out behind him. An argument, I should say.
Oh, they had the intelligence, and there was going to be a high propensity for
that cough. He was going, he was saying stuff.
Violence that day. Actually. Claim my time, yeah.
He will be in order. The time belongs to the gentleman from Texas. We've had some disruptions already. We don't need that. Let the gentleman may continue.
We know the Capitol leadership team, specifically Yogananda Pittman, had the intelligence, and there was going to be a high propensity for violence that day. And the Capitol itself was the target. We knew the extremist groups were going to be there. And why do I say that? It was your own report from your intelligence section, the IICD, which was run by Pittman, in the January 3rd special events section. It was in it. And Mr. Dunn, I believe that you thought that day would be like just any other. In your testimony, January 6th committee, you said you found out that he was going to get on a cell phone. So he sent you some information on social media. The point is, you're all
Sorry, it's from the recording. I downloaded the recording, so it's on their end.
Prepared to deal with that. And that's because your leadership failed to share the intelligence with you. It was their fault, folks. It was their fault. It was not President Trump. And we are going to expose it for the first time. Because the bench
should clear up.
Benny Thompson, the Sham Committee didn't do it.
Will the gentleman yield for
question? The Sham Committee didn't do it. The reporter's name is mentioned 4,207 times. We know.
It was on their end.
It's not allowed Donald Trump to come back, and they failed miserably. And I hope now I yield the balance to my distinguished colleague out of Jersey.
I just want to quickly go over something because we keep rewriting history. The president said peacefully and patriotically. What don't we understand about peacefully and patriotically? He asked for the National Guard. That was ignored. He asked Speaker Pelosi. What don't we understand that?
Will the gentleman yield for the question? Are you saying Nancy Pelosi controls the National Guard?
Wait a minute.
5 hours.
The president could have ordered the National Guard if he wanted to, and you know that.
My time. I lost some of my time.
The time belongs to the gentleman from New Jersey. You have a few more seconds.
And finally, how many elected officials say we're going to fight to win an election? It's new terminology used all the time, seriously. And of course, if they were guilty, they should be prosecuted. The problem was there were many in the mix.
The unanimous consent. Gentleman yields back. The
Last thing, your hand gestures, Mr. Fanone.
No.
You need medication.
The time of the gentleman expired. The audience will be in order. The committee will be in order. And the gentlelady from Georgia is recognized for unanimous consent.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have 2 unanimous consent requests to enter into the record to article.
Ask 1600 January 6th.
Want them to be fair and state.
People who were employed by his campaign to help him win the election. Our evidence is allegedly
that Trump knew to lie, which is why you say to the
thing
is expired
from being able to engage. Yet you proceeded anyway, raising numerous questions that affected all of them, specifically J.P. Cooney, to engage with the partisan. Mr. Smith, it was during your deposition with our committee that you revealed that you tasked your team, specifically J.P. Cooney, to engage with the partisan January 6th committee. You had to have known at the time the controversy surrounding this committee, including the fact that all of the members had been appointed by Nancy Pelosi, who disallowed the Republicans from being able to engage. Yet you proceeded anyway, raising numerous questions as to your strategy for conspiring with the J6 committee. You had every possible resource available to you. Your prosecution of President Trump was clearly a priority for the Biden administration. And it is clear that you had an unlimited budget. And you also left no stone unturned, even subpoenaing records from sitting members of the House and Senate. So what information could the J6 committee possess that you and the nation's top law enforcement agency did not obtain on your own?
I did request J.P. Cooney.
What did they have that you couldn't obtain on your own?
In any investigation,
What information did they have that you were not able to obtain on your own?
I couldn't know that until I had their information.
Was there anything there? Did you find that they had information that you were not able to obtain?
I don't recall specifically every bit of information. What I can tell you is we took in their information because we wanted to collect any information that could be relevant. We made our own independent assessment of the
Okay, so
evidence.
from the time that you were appointed as special counsel up to the date of your resignation in January of 2025,
The guy with the Nazi
did you
shirt
personally
thing.
have any
You gotta see him
contact with
later.
any members, staff, or contractors of the House's January 6th Select Committee, and if so, who?
I do not believe I had contact with anybody personally from the January.
The January 6th committee failed to archive or preserve its video recordings of witness
Maybe for tomorrow
interviews,
night's dinner.
deleting or destroying as many as 900 interview summaries or transcripts involving more than 1 full terabyte of digital data.
They destroyed the evidence. The January 6th committee destroyed that evidence.
Repeat, the J6th committee destroyed evidence. Let that sink in. Why would they
Not gigabytes, terabytes. Thousands of terabytes.
do such a thing? I think we have a dang good idea. The committee actually used selective
Anything that didn't fit their narrative.
clips from these videos and transcripts during their hearings, and yet by destroying this evidence, they have denied Congress and the public the ability to obtain their full content and context. They created their narrative by selective use of the evidence before them.
Colin, would you ever meet a bunch of patriots in D.C.? That's where I've tended to meet a lot of patriots. Gone to rallies and events in D.C.
So how very convenient. Did you or your team receive any of those witness transcripts or video recordings of transcribed interviews from the Select Committee that were not released to the public?
What I can tell you is that I requested J.P. Cooney to contact the Select Committee.
Do you know if you received
John.
any of the evidence or testimony that the J6 Committee eventually destroyed?
I don't have any information that the J6 Committee
You don't know
destroyed
one way
any
or
of
the other as you sit here today.
No, what I'm telling you is that I requested
How come no one was ever charged in that?
all the information we could get from the January 6th.
Has all of the information that you requested been preserved? All of the information from the J6 Committee, has that been preserved?
The information that we requested and received, we reviewed it. It was
Has it
part of
been
our file.
preserved?
Yes, as part
Thank
of our
you.
files. And
Were you or your team advised, or did you get the impression from anyone affiliated with the January 6th committee that these documents were not for public release, even though portions of them had already been shown to the American people? Were you advised to keep any of the information from the J6 committee confidential?
as I sit here right now, I don't recall that.
Okay.
I recall.
Did the J6 committee provide you with the Cassidy Hutchinson testimony as part of the trove of documents that you received?
As I sit here now, I don't recall, but it would.
Well,
be
are
very
you, you're
likely-
familiar with her testimony, aren't you?
I am, and it,
That's the lady that claimed that Trump tried to grab the steering wheel of the car and all this and that and try to make them all turn around and go back. At first, she was saying the opposite, but then they got to her. I think they offered a lot of money or they threatened her, one or the other.
And in fact, wouldn't you agree with me that Ms. Hutchinson's testimony, especially the most explosive allegations made, was comprised of hearsay upon hearsay upon hearsay? Come on, you're an attorney, Mr. Smith. You can answer the question. Of course it was hearsay.
There was,
And hearsay isn't admissible in court, in a court of law, is it? Why? Because it is inherent.
Yeah, she's got plenty of boats and she has plenty of pizza too there. to get over here.
Unreliable, and the victim or the target of a prosecution is not able to cross-examine. Isn't that correct? In fact, Mr. Smith, if you had attempted to walk into court with Cassidy Hutchinson's testimony, you would have been thrown out on your ear. No judge, no legitimate judge would have ever allowed the testimony of Cassidy Hutchins to be admitted in a court of law, would they?
I disagree.
Well, and then we've already talked about your record.
Mr. Chairman,
today,
Mr.
so I
Chairman,
can
the gentlelady's
understand
time has long
I
since
yield
expired.
back.
The time of the gentlelady has expired. The gentleman.
Tammy, that's only what's convenient for them to remember. You know, if it goes against their narrative, they don't remember.
From Florida.
Hey, can I do one UC request first?
Gentleman is recognized.
This is from factcheck.org.
Oh, they're
Meme
left-wing
rehashes.
crap.
I want could it be? Love the past. These people left Jonathan
Left-wing.
gave actually believe weaponization of the
24.
It's
Does that
annoying
sound
to
about
even
right?
listen to them.
That sounds about right.
Okay, so after the indictment,
Oh, I gotta go back a little.
That's in the election.
thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Smith, when was the initial indictment issued on President Trump? August 1st, 2023. Does that sound about right?
That's in the election case. That's correct.
Correct. And on that election case, after that, you asked for a trial date when?
I don't recall as I sit here right now.
January 2024. Does that sound about right?
That sounds about right.
Okay, so after the indictment, you in August, you asked for a January trial date. That's like 5 months. 5 months. How much evidence did you have? Millions of pages?
Yeah, he's told what to say.
As I sit here right now, I don't recall the exact.
I think in your testimony, they talked about a number, 13 million pages. Is that a ballpark accurate number?
I think that was the question asked of me, and as I sit here, I don't have an accurate number.
So let's just assume that that's true, right? Because you had a bunch of stuff. You had $50 million that you blew through the Treasury on a trial that went nowhere. How many pages per day is that? 100,000? That sound about right?
They were trying to get Trump, and if nothing else, they were trying to bankrupt him.
What if we break that down per hour? It's 4,166.
They wanted to make sure we wouldn't vote him back in.
Per minute is 70 pages. You like to read, sir? You like to read?
I do.
Do you read 70 pages a minute?
I do not.
I mean, that would be remarkable. So how do you prepare for a trial in 5?
Yeah, they tried to take Trump to court, put out millions of documents, millions and millions of pages of documents, and give him a few weeks, and then he had to go to trial. He had to do all this. You'd have to read the stuff 70 pages a minute, more than a page a second, 24 hours a day.
5 months, if you're asking the defense counsel to read 70 pages a minute, how do you do that and prepare a defense and look at all the witness testimony
24 hours a day, more than a page a second.
And video evidence that you supposedly had? How do you do that? You know what's shocking to me, and I think that one of the most egregious aspects of this case, Mr. Smith, is that if you get a traffic ticket in Washington, D.C., you're not going to trial in 5 months. But you want the president, the former president of the United States, to have a trial date with 13 million pages of documents within 5 months. I think that's ridiculous. And I think that speaks exactly to what we talk about when we examine not only
And what they do is they deliberately hold on to the ones that would help them.
your record, but the things in this case that are deeply troubling. That this was not the pursuit of facts and law and letting the judge and the jury decide. That this was an exercise in it was a political hit job, timed perfectly against the president of the United States. Sir, in the Florida case, in the records case, what happened ultimately in that case?
Not to mention they had several cases against them at the same time.
What happened ultimately in the case?
Yeah, the Mar-a-Lago records case.
I'm going to answer because I don't think this is covered by Judge Cannon's order. We moved to dismiss that case pursuant to Justice Department policy.
No, the records case in Florida.
Against Donald Trump.
The records case in Mar-a-Lago, were you ruled to be, what was the ruling in that?
That was Judge Cannon's ruling, and she ruled my appointment unlawful, and we sought to appeal that, and that appeal was pending at the time that we dismissed the cases.
So from the very beginning, were you ever confirmed by the United States Senate?
I have never been confirmed by the United States Senate. I will say that the history supporting my appointment is over 100
Biden just put him in. He never was sworn in.
years old. Other special counsels.
But isn't
have
there a
been
statute on the
approved.
appointment? I mean, you have to be confirmed by the Senate. So I think that's kind of interesting. But I think the point is, from the very beginning, on the documents case and others, you weren't even lawfully appointed, and that's why Judge Cannon ruled the way that she did. And from the beginning, we talk about that you followed Department of Justice policy, you followed the facts, you followed the law, you followed the Constitution. That's what you have said all throughout this day, parroted by the Democrats, that you have done nothing wrong. But from the very beginning, you weren't even lawfully, and you can't even recall who swore you in. So as we sit here today, based on your testimony in the transcribed interview, can you tell us who
Colin, do you have this kind of crap in England too going on with the politicians?
swore you in as special prosecutor?
As I said, I know I took the oath of office. I don't recall who swore me in. What I can share with you.
I don't know, sir. Call me naive, but that's a milestone career move for you that you get to do this, and you don't remember the circumstances. I just find that a little bit odd. But here's the thing, and I'm going to wrap up quick. You're unconstitutionally appointed. You breached the 60-day rule, releasing this very partisan attack against the president right before the election. You tampered with evidence in the Mar-a-Lago case that you admitted to in court filings. You subpoenaed members of Congress and their phone records in violation of the Constitution, of current statutes. You didn't even let the court know that these were members of Congress. How are we to assume otherwise that this wasn't political? Because it absolutely was, sir. And I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. The gentleman from New York is recognized for 5 minutes.
I would caution my friend from South Carolina was defend a political case. What
future of the Republic? Okay, Congressman here just did Donald Trump conversations with Donald Trump to myself. First of all, just a couple of comments. There are probably 10 people on this committee who have more conversations with 15 people on this committee who have more conversations with Donald Trump than myself. But anybody who says that Donald Trump thought he won that election, that is just plain not true. No way, unless he's the best actor in the history of
he did win the election.
Of this
building. I'll say it.
We agree. That Donald Trump believed.
Order.
That Donald Trump did not believe. Donald Trump did not believe he lost that election. He just didn't. No way. And I think on January 6th, I can't believe there were any congressmen here who didn't think Joe Biden was going to be sworn in as president. So it was a riot, but it wasn't a threat to the future of the Republic. Okay, now we should have posted up here a document for you to look at. Here we are. Okay, this is something we received with regard to Arctic frost. It's a list of about 70 names. I don't know whether or not you're familiar with the document.
I don't believe I'm familiar with this document.
Arctic frost is to go after Republicans.
The document contains just about every person who was higher up in the Donald Trump campaign. There's a little more emphasis on here on people involved in Wisconsin, but you're not familiar with the document.
I'm sorry, sir. What was your question?
He's stalling.
Would you know what was in this document? These names, you familiar with them at all? They're under the impression that most of these people, maybe almost all of them, were subpoenaed by you at some time or other. That helps you.
Some of these names I am familiar with. Others I'm not familiar with, or I don't recall as I sit here now.
Okay, we'll eventually submit another question for you on this later on. From the time you were appointed as special counsel to your resignation in January 2025, did you ever have contact with the January 6th Select Committee?
I did not personally. When I became special counsel, I directed my deputy to
an Oscar, right?
ask the Select Committee to provide
All
us
the
whatever
Democrats
evidence they
are
would
good
provide
at
us.
lying.
So you directed people to have.
Well,
direct
some of
contact.
them.
I
Some of them
directed
it's too
my
obvious.
deputy to make contact to
But they get away
collect
with it.
evidence from them.
And that's J.P. Cooney?
J.P. Cooney, my deputy, correct.
Okay. Did you have any concern that the evidence collected by the Partisan Select Committee would be in any way tainted by politics?
I apologize, sir. I just couldn't hear
Okay.
you because of the door.
I'm sorry, we had people going through here. Did you have any concern that the evidence collected by the Partisan Select Committee would be in any way tainted by politics?
I wish they'd handcuff
I
this guy.
intended to conduct an independent investigation, and my goal was to collect the evidence, assess it, and consider it with all the other evidence we would collect, and make an independent determination in my investigation, separate from that investigation.
I'm going to go back and ask you something on that one before, because I think I know the answer. There's a person on that list. by the
He
name of
doesn't want to
Vicky
recall it.
McKenna, who we believe
Tammy, he
did
doesn't
have,
want to recall it.
her record subpoenaed. Are you familiar with that name at all?
As I sit here right now, I am not familiar with that name.
Okay, thank you. With regard to part of the documents that you received was with regard to Cassidy Hutchison, right?
We requested that they give us everything they were willing to give us. As I sit here now, I don't recall if
Yeah.
specifically her
Coach,
information
well coached,
was in there, but
Sammy.
I'm not denying that it was. It may well have been.
Okay, we'll go back. Your team issued subpoenas to various financial institutions,
They got rid of terabytes of evidence.
telecommunications providers and conservative entities requesting communications between them and President Trump's campaign, right?
We did issue subpoenas for various sorts of information, correct?
Okay. And the bank records, you would say, or we could describe, were fairly broad, the request?
We issued subpoenas for certain bank records as part of our investigation, yes.
Okay. Shortly after you're appointed, you issued
All Republicans, all Trump supporters.
subpoenas to state and local officials for their communications with President Trump. Is that correct?
Yeah, it is a felony.
And his campaign.
As I sit here now, I'm trying to recall specifically which officials, but I know we issued a number of
claims the
subpoenas in our
January 6th committee
investigation
deleted
to
it.
understand the communications between President Trump and various entities, including state officials.
One final question.
One quick final question.
Yeah. Do you really believe that President Trump thinks he lost that election?
Our investigation following the facts and the law determined that.
No way. Thank you. That's enough.
It's going to lie.
Unanimous consent Gentleman from New York is recognized for unanimous consent.
Actually, I have two. One is to.
Thank you so much for fact. They're
Well,
under
that
the
was
impression
Jasmine
of the
Crockett.
realms charge.
Can't
The
listen
chair,
to
they're
her.
trying to act, so that means supporters that quote.
Can't believe she's
Gone
a
across,
senator.
if he managed to get his client, Walt Nauta, implied reasonable times, we've heard talk about solely seeking charges against Donald Trump, obviously targeting. We've talked about the amount of time and reasonable time frame. But I want to ask you for a moment, about some troubling reports that a prosecutor from your office, Jay Bratt, implied to Stanley Woodward that the administration would look more favorably on a judgeship application if he managed to get his client, Walt Nauta, to cooperate against President Trump and to flip on him. And we know this because Stanley Woodward himself came forth with this information.
So they're promising people judgeships if they would go against Trump.
And I guess my question for you, is this appropriate behavior for a special counsel's office to leverage attorneys' future career prospects?
Sir, I believe I can answer this question, even though it's regarding the Florida case, because we did filings on it, and I'm not referring to anything in the final report. And my answer to you, sir, is that when I was first notified about this issue, which was 9 months after it allegedly occurred, this is alleged to have occurred before I was even special counsel. What I did is I directed my deputies to look into it. We made sure the person involved self-referred it to OPR.
Oh, geez, you mean they investigated themselves? I'm sure they came up with the right answer.
And then we did a filing to the court. There was a motion by President Trump's attorneys. We responded and we laid out our position. And our position was that I did not believe that that allegation was credible. At best, it was a misunderstanding because the people in the room did not understand any threat to be made. Even Mr. Woodard in his allegation claimed it was only an inference. 9 months went by where we interacted with Mr. Woodard, in which we had no hearing of a complaint. When the complaint was raised for the first time, which was on the eve of that indictment being brought, it was raised in the guise of asking the court to delay the indictment while an investigation of it happened. So,
yeah, you don't get the job, hint, 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 if you don't comply.
I take allegations of misconduct very seriously. I would not want any of my attorneys threatening anybody. Ultimately, when I looked at this, I did not credit it, and we responded with our position in court. But we also, it was clear that it was referred to the Office of Professional Responsibility, which is what good prosecutors do in that situation.
Well, again, to say that you didn't consider it to be credible, I guess we have the United States Associate Attorney General Stanley Woodward, who claims that this threat was made to him, and I don't see what he would stand to gain from not telling the truth there. And I understand that you tasked 2 of your attorneys with investigating those statements made by Brat, but given the amount of publicity and the scrutiny that was surrounding this entire investigation, why in the world did you not initiate an independent investigation into these very alarming allegations?
Well, 2 points there. You stated that you don't, why would he do this?
Yeah.
When he made the allegation, when this allegation.
Tammy, yesterday I played a video about where they were giving judges $50,000 and they get their cut out of it and this and that to get them to rule certain ways. So that a lot of these judges are bought off.
And first came from President Trump's attorneys, and then days later from Mr. Woodard. He did.
That's what I got to scratch your heads on some of these rulings.
Did ask for the case, the indictment, to be put off in result of this. So there was a thing he was asking for in result. And with respect to an independent investigation, that's exactly why you refer this to the Office of Professional Responsibility. They conduct an independent investigation outside of my office.
Well, let me just say, for 4 years, we watched the Biden administration politicize and weaponize the Department of Justice. From going after pro-life activists to spying on faithful Catholics, the Biden administration showed disregard for impartiality. And this blatant disregard was perhaps no clearer than in the targeting of President Trump. We've talked about it all throughout this day. They knew they couldn't beat him at the ballot box, so they pursued alternative options. And I'm grateful for this committee's efforts today to investigate this conduct to ensure accountability. And while elections are not akin to jury trials, I feel strongly that the results of the 2024 election sent a clear message about how the American people feel about these politicized charges. And I think they absolutely made a difference in those 24 elections. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. The gentleman from Missouri.
Mr. Chair, I actually have a UC.
Gentleman is recognized.
This is, let's see, I asked unanimous consent to enter into the record this DOJ press release titled "Houston Man Sentenced to Prison for Assaulting Law Enforcement."
Or just
press release,
5 months later, and try and pursue conviction on president election, looking out to nearly that would have given Trump's legal team just 5 months later. During the United States on August 1st, 2023, you asked for a trial date of January 2024, just 5 months later. During your deposition, you did not dispute.
They only have to read 70 pages a minute.
Jeez. That would have given Trump's legal team just 5 months to review 13 million pages and thousands of hours of video evidence, working out to nearly 100,000 pages per day. Mr. Smith, you claimed that you acted independently of the upcoming presidential election, and yet you pushed.
And that counts working 7 days a week, not even a day off.
For a trial date ahead of the election, why such a rush to charge and try and pursue conviction on President Trump?
I sought to move that case forward expeditiously because the public has a right to a speedy trial as well as a defendant. That is, there is Supreme Court precedent directly on point regarding that. I felt it was my duty to do that. I considered all options. I listened.
Oh, geez. Could it have been the election was coming up and they were trying desperately to keep him from running and keeping him out of it?
But isn't the right to a speedy trial primarily a right of the defendant? I honestly, before your arguments, I've never heard of the idea that the prosecution has a right to speed up a trial and require the defense to review 100,000 pages a day in order to get a trial in before an election. I've never heard of such a thing.
The Supreme Court, in at least, as I sit here now, 3 different cases, has stated pretty explicitly that the right to a speedy trial is the public's as well as the defendant's, and that
you were trying to get President tried, convicted, and hopefully in prison before Election Day. I understand, Mr. Smith. I think it's very telling that during your deposition, you could not articulate any evidence that President Trump instructed individuals to unlawfully enter the Capitol on January 6, 2021. You claim that President Trump was, quote, responsible for the events at the Capitol on January 6th, which was not charged in your indictment. How do you reconcile that with the position of the department in other GA6 related cases that President Trump wasn't responsible for the events at the Capitol that day?
I'm not aware of the department taking a position that Donald Trump was not responsible. I think my recollection is the position that the department took in other cases is other defendants weren't not responsible themselves because of Donald Trump, that blaming him wasn't going to be a valid defense in their case. That's my recollection.
So on January 6, 2021, President Trump tweeted, quote, please support our Capitol Police and law enforcement. They are truly on the side of the country. Stay peaceful, exclamation point. This seems to show clearly that Trump urged his supporters at the Capitol to remain peaceful. Is that not right?
It's incorrect. First off, that
he didn't send that tweet.
He sent that tweet, but he sent that tweet only after being harangued by people to send something to stop the violence at the Capitol.
Okay, let's get the timeline straight then. At 1:55 p.m., there was a breach of the bike racks at the northeast perimeter. At 2:13, there were protesters breaching the Capitol, breaking into the Northwest Senate window and opening the doors. At 2:38, President Trump tweeted what I just quoted. That's 25 minutes between the Capitol building breach. Is 25 minutes, that's too slow? Would Trump have
Tribunal,
been
that's a good
guilty
idea,
of insurrection if it were 15 minutes? Would it 5 minutes?
We'll give him
How
a
quickly was
speedy
he
trial.
supposed to send that tweet to remain peaceful?
My recollection, as set forth in the indictment, is the timeline of when the attack of the Capitol happened, including the tweet that endangered Vice President Mike Pence's life was different than what you stated.
So that tweet was after, of course, the riot had started. But President Trump also said, quote, we've come to demand that Congress do the right thing and only count the electors who have been lawfully selected. I know that everyone will soon be marching to the Capitol building and to peacefully and patriotically make your voice heard. Peacefully and patriotically, is that an incitement of a riot?
That is not.
Okay. So in November 2016, Hillary Clinton disputed, for years called President Trump an illegitimate president. He knows he stole the election as recently as September 2019. Had there been a riot around the 2016 presidential election, would Hillary Clinton be guilty of inciting insurrection?
I'm not going to engage in hypotheticals. I will say that President Trump's conduct was without historical analog.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
Gentleman yields
Mr.
back.
Chair? May I?
The lady from Vermont. Mr. Chair, I ask a unanimous consent to enter into the record the first superseding indictment for Capitol rioter and Oath Keeper Kelly Meggs, who brought weapons and armor with him to D.C. and wrote to a friend, Trump said it's going to be wild, it's going to be wild. He wants us to make it wild. That's what he said. He's
and by the time we get them to bed, we're either watching Netflix or better yet, reading books. So when I came to this, I wanted to take the chair of the committee told me we had Jack Smith first. I'm going to start by saying that starting out, I was not real familiar with this issue. In fact, when chair of the committee told me we had Jack Smith coming in, my first response privately was, "Who's Jack Smith?" And I say that because my wife and I have 5 young children. We don't have cable television, and by the time we get them to bed, we're either watching Netflix or better yet, reading books. So when I came to this, I wanted to take.
They were worried that he'd beat Biden. That's why.
A real honest look at what.
That's why they had to get Trump out of the picture.
What had happened, and I should also say that a little about what I think happened on January 6th. I think, like most.
Imagine how many Democrats would have gotten wiped out if they didn't have all this crap to run against Trump in the election with. Imagine how many of the more House seats they would have lost and senators and stuff like that. Because the Biden economy.
Americans think Donald Trump was cruising to re-election in 2019 with the booming economy, and then COVID happened, George Floyd happened, a lot of things got changed. But I do think in the
you mean the pandemic?
Those circumstances that Joe Biden won that election. I also think, like most Americans, that January 6th was a terrible attack. I think it was.
They stole it, and I've showed plenty of evidence yesterday before they knocked me off most of the platforms.
Terrible riot. I don't believe it was an insurrection determined to overthrow the government, but I think it was an important day for America. I also think, like most Americans, it was extremely unfortunate for this country that the January 6th committee was a partisan event, and there was not an ability to put folks from both sides of their choosing on that committee, so there could have been a full and honest debate for the American people. I think it was politically motivated, what Nancy Pelosi did with that committee. And so when I came to this issue with a fresh look, with those kind of my priors and what I got into, what I wanted to find was that in the goodness of the rule of law, that you as an investigator carried this out to the highest ideals, and it was not a politically motivated investigation. And I think a lot about that in the 250th anniversary of America. I think about what the framers would have thought of this and the state of the rule of law.
Yeah, but he also said, even though he's Republican, he
checks and
didn't think it was
balances,
stolen.
what keeps us from being a banana republic.
I think there's several that won't admit
But what I was
that they think it
disappointed
was
to
stolen.
find when I looked into this
Because
issue
of the media.
and how you conducted the investigation was that it was a politically motivated investigation determined to influence the election in 2024.
Absolutely was.
And I say that, and the thing I cannot get around as I look into this is the timing that you fought for in when the court cases would be held. Now, to my understanding,
keeping them off
the
the
Department
campaign
of
trail,
Justice
too.
says you're not supposed to have politically motivated timing of a court case. But when I look at the timing that you pushed for and the
Keeping them off the campaign trail, trying to bankrupt them.
jurisdictions between New York and Florida, and with all the other things that President Trump was engaged in, that looks very politically motivated to me, and I think the American people, as they take a look at this issue, to try to influence the election. So that's where I come down after today's hearing, my own independent investigation, and your commentary. I sincerely hope that conclusion is incorrect, but that's the conclusion I come to. And I think when most people, if they look through this not through a partisan lens, I think they'll come to, they will not be able to get around the fact of how you timed these elections. I think that's really to the detriment of the American Republic and for where we sit today as a country. And so my one question for you, Jack Smith, is are you familiar with the Vietnamese city of Bến Tre?
I am not.
Well, Bến Tre was the site of an intense firefight in early 1968. And after that intense firefight that destroyed the town, a reporter from the Associated Press interviewed a U.S. major, and he said it became necessary to destroy the village in order to save it. Now, historians do not know what was the name of that U.S. major, but I think when they look back at your engagement with our democracy in this republic, they will remember your name. And when it comes to the rule of law that is the foundation of this country, they will remember someone who helped destroy the rule of law. And with that, Mr. President,
Gentleman yield
Mr.
for a
Chairman,
question.
I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Ranking members recognized for.
Oh, I was wondering whether you would yield for a question.
I
I will defer on. I'll just yield to the chairman.
Gentleman yields back. I think the gentleman.
Yeah, then I've just got one UC request, Mr.
Go
Chair.
to you, and then I think the gentleman from Wisconsin has a request.
Okay, this is from Politico.
They keep going to Politico, left-wing ad.
Jack Smith has not been able to answer.
We'll take it.
Exercise that right.
You're going to call him back again?
Yes.
Wow, okay.
And you're not always sure exactly where you're going. I was very excited to be back in Toledo today, but for a brief second, I forgot where I was coming. I opened the window and I thought the president had sent me to Greenland. And, which is going well, by the way, which is going well. But let me give a few shout outs here. Besides Kelly Loeffler, I want to thank a few people who are here. In the front row here, we have our great United States Senator.
Hey, Gregory, how low is the diesel prices getting out there? Have they come down like about $2, $2-3 per gallon?
For the state of Ohio, John Houston, my replacement. And he's doing a great job. He's helped us a great deal. We have the next governor of the state of Ohio, Vivek Ramaswamy. Vivek, give it up for Vivek.
I haven't seen
we
this.
Have Vivek's new running mate, Rob McCauley.
Watch it
Rob,
together.
Where are you there? Hey, Rob, good to see you, man. Thank you for being here. And I see our great Secretary of State, Frank LaRose. Thank you, Frank. Now, Rob, I'll give you advice as a number 2. Here's my advice. What you need to do when you're governor or when you're lieutenant governor and Vivek is governor, because you guys are going to win, and John Houston is going to win.
Yeah,
we're going to make sure that happens, right? You guys are going to get out there and make sure these guys win. We're going to be with you every step of the way. But when Rob is lieutenant governor, the secret to being a successful number 2 is to take credit for every single good thing the administration does. And when anybody criticizes the administration, you can step back and say,
that's
that
low.
was not me.
Oh, that's
that
for gas,
one.
yeah.
That is how you be a successful lieutenant governor for the state of Ohio.
I heard there was 14 states where it's less than $2. There's one place where it's $1.49 per gallon for gas.
That's my approach as Vice President of the United States, and I see my dear friend Jay Edwards, who's running for treasurer. Jay, it's good to see you, man. Thanks for everything that you've done for our state and our country.
I haven't seen this, so we'll see what he has to say.
Now, I'm headed from here to Minneapolis, where we're going to talk with some of our ICE agents, talk with local officials about how we can turn down the chaos. And my simple piece of advice to them is going to be, look, if you want to turn down the chaos in Minneapolis, stop fighting immigration enforcement and accept that we have to have a border in this country. It's not that hard. If you look all across our country, what's happened in Minneapolis is happening almost nowhere else in the United States of America. And that's because whether it's in Texas or Tennessee, it's in red states, it's in blue cities, even within our country, most people are cooperating with the simple principle that we ought to be able to enforce our immigration laws and get illegal criminals the hell out of the United States of America. It's really not that complicated. But in a few distinct cities, you see this craziness because the far left has decided that the United States of America shouldn't have a border anymore, and they are willing to fight and penalize and dox and even assault our law enforcement officers in order to fight for the basic principle that anybody ought to be able to come into the United States of America. Well, I'll tell you right now, the Trump administration, we reject that. We are going to get illegal criminals out of our country, and we're not going to let you left-wing radicals stop us.
Amen.
But I'm here in Toledo to talk about the great American comeback, and that is what I believe. We are 1 year in. We are 1 year in to raising wages for workers instead of declining wages for workers. We're 1 year in to $18 trillion of new investment for the United States.
Gregory, now that the prices have come down on the fuel and all that and other stuff, are you able to make more money per load?
States of America, instead of investment going to every other country but the United States of America. We're 1 year in to getting illegal aliens out of our country so that American homes can go to American citizens, which is exactly where they ought to go. And we are 1 year in to seeing lower inflation and bigger paychecks and more opportunity for the American worker. Ladies and gentlemen,
diesel.
I think that we are on the cusp of the greatest economic year in the history of the United States of America because we're doing something new for a change. We're investing in you. We're investing in American workers. We're investing in American
the way
businesses.
things are heading,
and
I
we're
can't
saying
imagine
to everybody
about a year from
that
now.
the United States is open for business, but only if you invest in our great American people and our great American businesses.
Good, Gregory,
We're
good.
done with the old approach of shipping American jobs overseas and
And I
investing
bet you,
in everybody
you get like
else.
600 gallons at a
We're
time.
back to investing in the American worker, and we're not going to stop fighting for you until we return America to the true golden age of great American prosperity.
Nice, John.
Now, even
That's going to help the farmers,
seen
too.
incredible success.
The farmers
from
can make
Trump
more
administration's
profit off their
economic
crops.
policies. The IRS
But they
says
go
that
through
this
a
is
lot
going
of
to be the
fuel.
biggest tax refund year in the history of the United States of America. And I know there are a lot of far left Democrats like Marcy Kaptur who don't like it when the government gives you
Here it's a little under $3 for most places, but there's some places over $3. So it's right around that $3 range here in upstate New York.
you back your hard
Now, if you were to go downstate New York, it's probably about 40 cents more.
earned money, but the Trump administration believes that you earned it, you ought to keep it, and we ought to keep our hands the hell out of your pocket in Washington, D.C.
Amen on that. Amen.
So why are we going to have the biggest tax year, the biggest refund year in the history of the United States of America? It's because the president, working with the Republican Congress, got no taxes on tips. It's because we got no taxes on overtime. It's because we got no taxes on Social Security. 3 promises that we ran on, 3 promises the president of the United States kept, and because of it, every single person in this room and every single person in the state of Ohio is going to benefit from it. That's what we said we were going to do. We were going to end the green energy scam and invest in American energy workers, and we did it. We're going to reward companies for investing in the United States of America and penalize companies for trying to invest in communist China and places all over the world. We said we were going to do it, and we did it. And because of it, we're starting to see the benefits for American workers every single day. We have the lowest inflation that we've had, well, since the last Trump administration.
214,
We have
that's
rising
pretty good.
wages for American workers. You know that under the Biden administration, those terrible, terrible times, under the Biden administration, you lost an average
2017,
$3,000 over that 4 years because inflation was out of control and wages were stagnant for our country. You know, under the first
Well, he came
year
in
of the Trump
2017,
administration,
and he
you've already gained
got the
over
fuel prices down
$1,300 in real wage gains. And my friends, we are just getting started.
Everything
because what
that gets
the
moved
president of the
costs
United
more.
States says every single day is we are not done fighting for the American worker until we get everything back that the Biden-Harris administration took away.
The woman with the
more beyond
glasses?
that. I
Yeah.
don't want you to just struggle to get by. I don't want you to worry about paying your credit card bill or your medical benefits. I don't want
Same
you to
type
think,
of glasses
do I buy
they wear.
prescription drugs or do I buy food? That is the legacy of the Democratic Congress under the Biden-Harris administration, and it's something we can't go back to. A lot of you know my story. I mean, this is my home. You all, well, you voted for me. At least most of you did. So
he's showing a lot of youth
actually,
behind him.
in
actually.
this room, I probably got
Younger.
about 100% of the vote. I think I see a few people who weren't old enough to vote for me in 2022. But look, you know my story. You know the fact that I grew up in a family. I was raised by a grandmother who would look at a credit card statement every single day and wonder, what can we afford? Can I buy my medicine this month, or do I need to focus on food? Can we take a little bit extra maybe and buy those pills that she needed in order to stay healthy and keep our family afloat? These are the decisions that way too many families had to take under the Biden administration. And under the Trump administration, we want better for you. And we're fighting better for you every single day. We
Says
want you to
Trump
have enough
2024.
prosperity to, yes, buy
The
the things
hat
that you need,
says
to, yes,
that.
buy those medications and put food on the table,
Or are you
but
talking
maybe
about
to
a
take a
shirt?
little vacation. Because if you work hard every single day, you ought to be able to enjoy the fruits of your labor.
William, I think.
Maybe you want to buy something extra for your kids. Maybe you want to do something that you couldn't do when you were a kid, because that is the promise of the American dream.
The left's
we leave
desperate
the next
to win.
generation a little bit better
They're
off
desperate.
than the generation that came before. And what we had under the Biden-Harris
A
administration
lot of countries are
is lower
moving more
price-
nationalist.
excuse me, lower
That's
wages.
a good thing.
We had higher
Instead of this
prices.
open borders
We had more
bullshit.
people struggling to get by, and more people who gave up on the essentials instead of buying the things that they needed to buy. What we have under the Trump administration is a totally different
Wow.
approach. And
That's
what
a
we're
lot,
trying
Gregory.
to do, and what we've already
60K,
done
huh?
a lot over the last year, is made you wealthier, has made your communities safer, has gotten those illegal aliens out of the United States of America, and is trying to rebuild.
They need to keep it that way for at least 20 years to
So I have a
really
very simple
fix
question.
this country, keep
Do
the
we,
prices low.
1 year into this great American recovery, do we want to go back to the failed policies of the Biden-Harris administration? No, we don't. So let's keep doubling down on American prosperity. Let's keep doubling down on
Amen.
the American worker. And let's tell Marcy Kaptur and the rest of the crazy congressional Democrats that we are not going back. We are going forward to a brighter future for every
I haven't
single one
seen
of our
this, though.
citizens.
We're seeing it together.
You know, there are things the media doesn't talk about that I think are so important to highlight because they show real progress for the American people. Did you know that for
Yeah,
4
then you
years
can
under
buy
the
more
Biden-Harris
goods.
administration,
You
Americans
can buy that new
paid
truck
the highest prescription
after a
drug
few
costs
years,
anywhere
huh?
in the world.
Good
And
down
we did
payment on it.
because we had an administration that refused to go to Big Pharma and say, this is ridiculous
Tommy Trump,
that you're
okay.
charging 1/10 the price
24.
in England or in France that you are in the United States of America. So what did the president do? One of the first things President Trump did is he hauled these pharmaceutical executives into the Oval Office. He wasn't getting any help from Congress, though we certainly would have appreciated Marcy Kaptur helping us lower prescription drug costs, but we weren't getting that help. So what did he do?
I
He
bet
brought
you
the
a
farm
truck rally
executives
in,
into the
in
Oval Office and he
PA,
said, you are done
Wilkes-Barre.
forcing Americans to pay more
Was
for
in
prescription
Wilkes-Barre,
drugs than any
PA.
other country anywhere
If Charlie
in the
was
world.
on here, he
And
probably
so
lives not
now,
that far from
thanks
there.
to the president's leadership and thanks to the support of our congressional allies like John Huston, we have prescription drug costs coming down in this country for the very first time. Whether it's antibiotics or whether it's cancer drugs,
Wow,
whether it's
Gregory,
the
good job.
most advanced therapeutics that exist anywhere in the world,
Been working hard, I
Americans
guarantee you,
are
for that.
seeing lower costs. And they're going to keep
Hey,
on
Mr.
seeing
Fixer.
lower costs because the
You missed
president
it.
of the United States had the courage to
Firefighting
fight
the
for
early
you
part.
rather than
I
international
think this guy
pharmaceutical
went
companies.
back to that meeting where those two fought, but I'm not sure. I got to see the tail end of this.
Now, the media doesn't talk about that because, of course, it makes us look good. But these are the victories that depend on having smart, wise leadership in Washington, D.C. You know, another thing the media doesn't talk about is that under 4 years of the Biden
Your comments are
administration,
coming up on the
average
upper
cost
right,
of a
too,
home in the United States
in
of
the video.
America nearly
I
doubled.
changed that,
And
and
in
I
certain
put the thing at the
jurisdictions,
bottom,
it
but I
actually
can't
got way worse than that. There are
move
certain
myself up
places
to the upper
where the
corner.
cost of a home in 4 years went up by
I'm gonna have to mess with
200%.
it.
What's happened over the last 5 months? Rents have gone down over the past 5 months. And so though there's still a lot of work left to do, we're finally seeing more
It needs to
Americans
be
being
cut in
interested,
half
especially
about,
our young
really.
families, being interested in buying a home for the first time. We're seeing those rents come down. We're seeing the cost of housing flatten out a little bit. And one of the biggest
I agree,
reasons
Gregory.
is because on the one hand,
That's
we
why
lowered the
voting
regulatory
matters. Then
burdens
we
to build
we
houses
can't
in
let
this
them
country. While
take
on the other
control,
hand, we got illegal
in the
aliens
midterms.
out of the United States of America who
Can't
are
let them
taking
have the
American
control
homes.
back.
That is how you lower prices.
It'll
Focus
break their
on
backs
American
if
workers
we beat
and
them in for
invest
another
in
2
American
years.
home building. You don't give all of our homes to illegal aliens. That is the legacy of the Biden-Harris administration.
Preparing for a storm, huh? We already
But on
got
all
it here.
these things, we know there is still so much work to do. And this is something I want you to hear. The Democrats talk a lot about the affordability crisis in the United States of America. And yes, there is an affordability crisis, one created by Joe Biden's policies. You don't turn the Titanic around overnight. It takes time to fix what was broken. I said earlier that the average American
24
has
degrees
seen
there?
$1,300
It's about
of
6
real
degrees or
increase
4 degrees
in
here.
their wages
No, I'm
just
not
in
sure
the past
exactly.
year. Well, Joe Biden, they saw a
Gonna get down to minus
$3,000
temperatures soon.
decrease. Now, on the one hand, I'm proud.
Wind chill
of
like
that.
30 or
I'm
40
proud of
below.
the fact that you're
Where I
$1,300
live.
richer
But
than
I'm
you
in
were just a
upstate New
year
York.
ago. But you know what? really pisses me off,
I could try to
compared
people on
to
here.
when Donald Trump left office after his first term, you're still about $2,000 poor, because that's what happened under the Biden administration. They did so much damage that it's going to take us time to rebuild the great American prosperity that we had at the end of the first Trump administration. But what I'm telling you is that we are committed to doing it. As much as the media focuses on distractions every single day, in the Oval Office, the president looks at us and says, why haven't we done more? Let's do more. Do more. He'll tell us, person by person, from the Secretary of Commerce to the Secretary of the Treasury to our SBA administrator to the Vice President of the United States, fight every single day for better home prices for Americans, for lower prescription drug prices, and of course for rising wages. That is what we're going to do. That is what we have done. And that is what we promise will be the legacy of the second Trump administration.
Supposed to be like
more
1 degree
prosperity
by
for
morning.
you. Now, I want to take a few questions from the media, but before I do, I just want to close with this.
Oh, and
thought.
dropping fast, Mr.
You know,
Fixer.
growing up in Middletown, Ohio,
Whereabouts
which
he
is,
at, Mr.
pretty
Fixer?
much due south on I-75. A lot of you probably spent time in Middletown in the same way that growing up I spent a fair amount of time in Toledo. The story of towns like Toledo,
John.
the story of towns like Middletown, when I was growing up,
It can get really
was
cold
one
there,
of decline.
Not briefly.
It was a story of factories closing down, of good
Here
people
we're supposed to have a week
losing their jobs,
of
of
around
families
10
that were
degrees or
fracturing
less.
under the financial stress that sometimes comes when people lose that access to a good job. That is not the future that we should expect for our
What you
children.
need is more good
We should
jobs.
demand better
Take
from
them
our
away from the
leaders,
friggin'
and that's
illegals.
exactly what the Trump administration is promising.
Remember,
a
the other thing that's
story
got to help you is
where
getting a lot
open
of
up
these
the
illegal
morning
drivers
paper
off
or
the
you
road.
turn on the
undercutting
TV,
the
you see a
drug
factory that's closed down, but you see a new factory that's being built. Not a story where your neighbor lost their job, but a story where your neighbor gets a new and better job because of what is being built right here in towns like Toledo. Not communities that are unsafe, where you get
I tend to want to get in the group
murdered
just say hi
walking
to
down the
everyone
street,
when
but
I'm
where
typing. I don't
every
want
single
to
person,
type
rich
everyone's
or
name
poor,
out.
black or
you know?
white, can enjoy their God-given right to public safety in their own community, because we're fighting for law enforcement as opposed to against law enforcement like the last administration.
60-40, huh? Okay.
I want the grandmothers, like my grandmother, who are raising grandkids they weren't necessarily planning to raise. I want them to not have to choose between putting food on the table or buying their medicine. That is the future that we're fighting for. And that is what the Democrats in D.C. have fought against every single day of this administration. Now, I don't want to say all Democrats, because my mama, the woman who raised me, was one of those blue dog Democrats. She was socially conservative, she was patriotic, but she was a Democrat. And I know that in Toledo, there are a lot of those Democrats still today. But I got to tell you, in Washington, D.C., those Democrats do not exist. They disappeared from Washington, D.C. They care more in Washington about using this country
they went back to
as
that meeting
one
where
big
those two
fraud
guys ended
scheme
up fighting
than they do
or arguing.
about fighting for your prosperity. And that's why we cannot reward these people come November. What are they actually fighting? We know what they're fighting
That's on
against.
their end, not
They
mine.
hate Donald. These are not politicians who care about you. They care about keeping the fraud going. And the question in
Yeah, they do,
November
'cause they-
is very
it's money
fundamental.
laundering.
It's going to be, do we reward the people like John Houston, who cut your taxes, who fights for lower housing costs, who fights for lower prescription drug costs? Or do we reward the crazy far-left Democrats who think that America is one big...
You must be doing this for a local race, maybe a House seat or a Senate seat.
get-rich scheme for fraudsters. That's it. That's simply the question. So I'm asking you, are we going to fight for the people who are fighting for the American dream? Are we going to send a message to the far-left radicals that this country belongs to American citizens, not to illegal aliens?
Amen.
Are we going to fight for the American dream for people like my grandmother and people like your children every single day? So let's remember what we're fighting for this November. It's to have political leadership in country.
Yeah, the elections are going to be
that fights
really
for the American
important.
people, that fights for the American dream. Don't forget it, my friends. Let's work
42
hard.
Fahrenheit.
Let's elect these great candidates to higher office.
Does it
because
ever
that's the only way
get much
we're gonna
below
send a
zero
message to
there,
the Democrats that
Colin?
this country belongs to Americans and that the American dream belongs to the citizens who built this nation. God bless you, and thank you for having me.
So I don't know what comes next here. I think they go back to the meeting. I'm not sure.
Now, I appreciate that, but I'm going to take a few questions from the reporters, and then we're going to hit the road.
Mr. Vice President, John Kostick from News 5 in Cleveland. President Trump outlined the framework of a future deal on Greenland yesterday. NATO this morning, however,
What's
said the
everyone's
Secretary
thoughts
General
on
did not
Greenland?
propose any compromise on sovereignty. What's your understanding of what is in this plan, and would you stand for something that did not
The minerals
include
are important, and the
ownership even
protection,
beyond where the bases are located?
So, John, first of all, it's good to see you again. John is, this is going to ruin his reputation among his liberal media peers, but John is one of my favorite journalists in the state of Ohio. He's a great TV journalist from Cleveland. And I used to joke with John that if he ran for high office, maybe back in 2012, 2013, he would have won because his name is almost exactly the same as John Kasich.
Gets a lot colder then, huh?
And then if he ran in 2024, he would have got his ass kicked. So it's amazing how things change, John. But I see you're still doing great things on Greenland. First of all, we're here to talk about the great American comeback. And that's what the president is focused on. That's why the president went to Davos. You know why? Because he wants more investment from all over the world.
It sounds like you're doing better, Gregory.
You'll hear this.
Definitely since Trump's gotten in, you're starting to do better, Gregory.
You know what that means? That means new factories. That means new plants. That means new oil refineries and new energy facilities in the United States of America. Because for so long, our government had the policy that we were going to invest in other countries. No. We want other countries to invest right here in the United States of America. And that's why the president went to Davos, to say that America is open for business, but America is open for business.
I'm going to pause this for a minute. Another thing that was pointed out by Trump and some of the other people, it takes I forgot how many days to ship everything down through southern part of Africa and all that, to ship it out to the Middle East and all that kind of stuff, and Japan, all that kind of stuff. With the waterways up through Greenland, and with things thawing out a little bit, we can go up that way in 10 hours. In 10 hours, they can get it up to around that way a lot quicker, just by going across the top of the earth. Especially if we're open through Canada. It's going to save a ton of money on shipping stuff and getting oil. We're going to be sending oil over there to China as well, a lot quicker that way and a lot less expensive and stuff like that. So that's why Greenland's important,
Building right here in Toledo and all across our great country. That is the message. Now on Greenland, simple fact is Greenland matters to American national security because our entire missile defense relies on securing the Arctic. This is something.
Gregory, they charge you still road tax every road you drive on so much a mile?
The media who's obsessed with Greenland, they completely forget why Greenland matters. What if, God forbid, I'm not saying it's going to happen anytime soon.
I thought he made the deal pretty good.
What if a country launched a missile at the United States of America? We weren't going to ever bomb them. We would need control over the Arctic in order to shoot that missile down. Our entire missile defense system depends on that Arctic security. Meanwhile, the Chinese and the Russians and even the Danes who control Greenland admit that they want to control that facility. They want to control that island, that landmass. That would make.
If we ever did go to war, that would be important in terms of ships getting back and forth and flying routes and all that kind of stuff. If you can control the Greenland area,
us weaker, that would make our country more endangered. That would mean that if the president
keeps
is
Ireland
negotiating
safe
with a foreign leader, he would have less leverage because they would be able to realistically threaten the sovereignty and the territorial safety of the United States of America. We're not going to let that happen. The negotiations with NATO are going fine. I believe, having seen this for the past year, that when the president sets his mind to accomplish something in negotiation, he accomplishes it. And fundamentally, NATO and the Danes and everybody else have to recognize the simple
Well, they got a lot of
fact
materials
that this
there,
matters,
too.
not just to American
Rare earth
security,
materials.
but to world security. So we're going to keep on trying to make sure that we
So if
secure
you're looking
that landmass
20 years
so that we
down
can
the road,
protect
that's
the American
important.
people as we've done and will continue to do. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Well, if they're saving money,
Whoever's
Gregory, it
next.
helps.
The lights are very bright, so I can't see, but whoever's got the microphone, just shout out a question.
Mr. Vice President, Henry Gomez, NBC News. President Trump this week said that ICE has made some mistakes. I'm curious what steps the administration is taking to rectify those, and do you think your presence in Minneapolis today will calm the tensions there?
Well, certainly one of my goals is to calm the tensions, to talk to people, to try to understand what we can do better. You know, when the president
Oh, you can't talk to these leftists. It's insane. They're insane.
says that that mistakes have been made,
They're also paid.
you know, my thought on that is that, well, of course there have been mistakes made, because you're always going to have mistakes made in law enforcement. I mean, we all know this. Probably every single person in this room knows a police officer. 99% of our police officers, probably more than that, are doing everything right.
They're human.
Some people are going to make mistakes. That's the nature of law enforcement. But the number one way where we could lower the mistakes that are happening, at least with our immigration enforcement, is to have local jurisdictions that are cooperating with us. There are some very basic things that would make Minneapolis look Memphis, Tennessee.
And they could stop ramming their cars and trying to block ICE from doing their job.
Blue city where you do not have this chaos in immigration enforcement because the local police and the local authorities are cooperating with us. So when you look at Memphis, Tennessee, or Austin, Texas, or any other community virtually across the United States of America, and you don't see the same level of chaos in Minneapolis, the natural conclusion is that it's not what ICE is doing in Minneapolis, it's what Minneapolis authorities are doing to prevent ICE from doing their jobs. And that's exactly what's happening. So, let me give you just a couple of very real-world examples of some of the problems.
Well, it sounds like you're
Let's
doing
say
okay, Gregory.
We have a sex offender.
Better than me.
Arrested a
I'm
number
just getting
of
by.
sex offender illegal
Right,
aliens
Social Security
in Minneapolis just in the
and
last
it's
couple of months.
just enough, and that's
That
it.
person, because they're an
Nothing
illegal
extra.
alien, we don't know where they live. We don't know their address. If local authorities were cooperating with us, it would be easier to send an ICE agent to the person's house to arrest them, to have local law enforcement protecting our immigration officers. They throw the sex offender in the back of a car, deport that person, throw them in jail, whatever, and then they go home safely to their families. That's not what's happening. What's happening instead is that the Minneapolis authorities are refusing to tell us where that sex offender lives. Why are they protecting sex offenders? That's anybody's guess, but it's crazy. Meanwhile, the local police are being told by the mayor, don't help them. So if there are protests, and there are people trying to not just protest, but interfere with what ICE is doing, we don't have the support of local law enforcement to keep the peace. So when I talk about lowering the temperature, those are the two things that we want those local authorities to do. Help us find sex offenders and get them out of their community. And again, this is bonkers. Think about this. If you've got a neighbor who's a sex offender and somebody wants
Thanks
to go
for
and
the
take that
info,
person
Mary.
away, I'm going to raise my hand and say, yes, please, get that person away from my children. What is wrong with Minneapolis authorities? They so hate the idea of enforcing immigration laws that they're telling their people not to get sex offenders out of their community. It's crazy, and it's why we see so much chaos in Minneapolis,
He's right about
but
that.
not elsewhere.
Sean Haggerty, sir, 13 Action News here in Toledo. In the city itself, affordable housing is a real problem. Supply is low, rents are going up. What specifically can your administration do to
Lower
increase the
costs.
supply and get people, especially in the city of Toledo, into long-term, stable, good housing?
So we're working on a number of things.
The other cost is a lot of illegals there are driving up the cost of housing. If there was more available, the prices would come down.
This front. First of all, one of the things the president just announced a couple of weeks ago that, again, hasn't gotten a lot of media attention, but I think is very important, is that he said, we want American homes to go to American citizens. That means no illegal aliens buying American homes.
Exactly.
It means no mortgages going to people who have no legal right to be in this country. But it also means that we're going to stop large institutional investors from buying up American homes. That was a major announcement from the president, and we're working on that
Good
now.
idea. Good idea.
And you see this all the time. You see this massive, beautiful new subdivision where every single person there is renting because that subdivision was bought up by a massive institutional investor. That investor, by the way, is very often paying a lower price for their
Often
debt
China.
than an American citizen. So we give these people special rules, we give them cheaper access to money, and then we let them buy homes that by right go to American families. That is one of the main reasons why we believe homes have gotten unaffordable in this country. So again, the last administration did nothing about it. We're going to do something about it. We've already started. Here's another thing. If you look in the
it's going to take a little while.
20 biggest metros in the United States of America, the 14 with the most illegal aliens have seen the biggest decrease over the past year in rent prices. Now, why is that? Again, if you get people out of the country who are taking up homes that ought to go to American citizens, that's going to put downward pressure on prices. That's going to make it easier for young American families to afford to buy a home. There are three exceptions to that. 3 places where you've seen rents increase as opposed to decrease, and every single one of those places are sanctuary cities. So in addition to causing chaos, being a sanctuary city makes your communities less safe, and it also makes housing less affordable. It is very simple. Enforcing immigration law lowers prices for Americans and makes our communities safer. It's a no-brainer, so we'd encourage local authorities to continue to collaborate and work with us instead of fighting against us. Next question.
Amen.
Good morning, Mr. Vice President. Thank you so much. Kyle Mazza, freelancing for Anadolu Agency today. Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky announced at today's Summit for the World Economic Forum that Ukraine, Russia, and the U.S. will hold their first trilateral talks Friday and Saturday, the 23rd and 24th in the United Arab Emirates. Seeing what your reaction is to that about those talks. And in Minneapolis, sir, the attacks on law enforcement, the attacks on ICE, what is your message to the law enforcement community at this time when they look for the Trump and the Vance administration to calm their nerves, to ease their burdens? Families are reacting
what haven't
to
you
this
sold
as well.
Your truck?
So as you stand there on that stage today, how does that make you feel?
Well, you know, one of the things that we want to do is send a message to our local law enforcement, to our federal law enforcement, that we stand with them. And we're not going to abandon them. We're not going to do what the last administration did, which is throw them under the bus to appease a bunch of left-wing radicals. We're actually going to fight for them. Because I believe, look.
Well, he's saying all the right things, pretty much.
I continue to be fundamentally optimistic about our country. I think that whether you're a Democrat, a Republican, an independent, most people in this country fundamentally still support law enforcement. They love what people do to keep them safe. They recognize it's dangerous. But what happened in the Democratic Party over the last few years is they allowed a very small band
you're not sold on him. Okay, I got
to drive
you.
the agenda, and that makes our cops and our federal law enforcement
probably
feel
will
less
come
safe.
down to
Makes it feel like their government doesn't have their back. Well, I promise them, every single police officer in this country and every single federal law enforcement officer in this country, we have your back, and that's one of the messages I'm trying to send by going to Minneapolis and talking to our ICE officers there. So that's number one. Number two. You talk about attacks on law enforcement.
Part of it was his administration.
I understand. Look, I'm biased.
Dick Cheney in
I
there.
think the Trump-Vance administration has got the right approach to immigration. I think it's insane to let tens of millions of people flood across your country, many of them with violent criminal records, and then to say you're not allowed to do anything to get those people out of your country. That's crazy to me. Fine. If you disagree, if you think that we ought to let sex offenders be in your community, even if they're illegal aliens, fine. Make that argument. But make that argument at the ballot box. Write an op-ed in a newspaper. Argue about it on social media. Don't go to the streets and start assaulting federal law enforcement officers because you disagree with the policies of our administration. It's cowardly bullshit.
They've been assaulting patriots that try to record or go live there or catch them in the fraud. These leftists are assaulting them, physically attacking them really bad.
And it's got to stop. And here's here's the excuse my language to all the kids there. I'm sorry, got a little fired up. I was raised by a woman who cussed a lot, so sometimes I do too. My wife's on me. We're working on it. But here's the final point about this. People who assault federal law enforcement or local law enforcement will be shown no quarter.
You need more choices. That would help.
5 minutes before I got on stage.
If there was like 3 or 4 choices, it would help.
I got a message from our great Attorney General, Pam Bondi. You know what Pam said to me? That they finally
I will vote against the
arrested
Because I
the
know a
ringleader
lot
of
from the
those
Cuba,
church protests in
Venezuela,
Minneapolis.
Russia, China, that have all been through that socialism crap, you know? South America especially.
So here's the thing.
The primaries
Again,
matter
you
a
don't
lot.
have to agree with my immigration
Gregory, the
policies,
primaries will
but if
matter
you
a
want to
lot.
protest by going to an innocent church
And-
service on
and
a Sunday,
sometimes they lie
you see
and
these
they get
images.
away with it,
They're
you know?
scaring little
You don't
kids
know.
who are there to worship God on a Sunday morning. Those people are going to be sent to prison so long as we have the power to do so. We're going to do everything that we can to enforce the law, whether you're protesting at a church, which is a violation of federal law, or you're assaulting a law enforcement officer, which again is a violation of federal
They were doing much more than protesting there.
law. There are going to be consequences. There already have been consequences, and there are going to be a lot more to come. So
Now, if you protest at church, you can protest outside. Don't go in and harass and attack people.
my message is, if you're thinking about assaulting a law enforcement, don't, because we're going to lock you up if you do.
Notice they didn't protest at a mosque.
Now, you asked about Zelensky and Russia and Ukraine. Look, the president, he talks about this all the time. This has been the hardest war to solve. Of the 8 wars that the president has solved, he thought this would be the easiest. It's ended up being
Liberals in Europe keep, every time he has a plan and just about to be installed, they put a monkey wrench in the whole goddamn thing. They want to keep it going because they're getting money, sending it out and money laundering it back. They've made tons of money off
being the
this.
hardest. The fact that they're sitting down and talking is progress. And I think we've made a lot of progress here. But look, you've got 2 people who really hate each other. The President of the United States' attitude is quite simple, and I happen to think that it's exactly right. Peace is what is in the best interest of the United States of America. We want commerce between those 2 countries. We want Europe to be less
Yeah, Marianne, they're after Christianity, white Christians especially. They really see them as enemy number one.
focused on war and more focused on investing in the United States of America. And the best way to do that is to get that war.
Sorry to say, it's a lot of these white women libtards. White liberal libtards are the worst.
To a peaceful resolution. We're going to keep on working on it. I've been disappointed in the past where I thought we were close to a peace deal, so I'm not going to predict that anything is going to happen in the next couple of weeks. But I know under the president's leadership, we've made great progress, and we're going to keep on making progress so we can stop the killing and get back to actually building things all over the world as opposed to people killing each other and tearing things down. And I'll take one more question.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. This is Mary Margaret Olahan with the Daily Wire. I know you were here in September in Minneapolis after an attack on a church that killed school children. What does it mean to you that this attack, another attack, happened
By Trantifo, the attack was.
on a church last weekend? And do you want to see more arrests for this attack?
So, Mary, yes, I certainly want to see more arrests because I've seen the videos and there are very clearly
Okay,
more
Mr.
people who
Fixer.
have violated the law. Now, I'll let the Department of Justice speak to that because, as you know, actually getting an arrest warrant is not a walk in the park necessarily. There's a legal process that we have in this country, and rightfully so. But I know the Department of Justice continues to work on bringing every single person.
Yeah, when I went to the rally, we were a little bit higher up behind the stage here. And it's a really, actually, if you're back here, you think it'd be easy to see, but you can't because the lights are really bright. You know, they're in your eyes, all these people behind them.
Person who is involved in that church
can't see that well.
protest, but it's not just a protest. When you interrupt people during a worship service, that is a violation of the law. Just as you have the right to protest.
I was up about 10, 12 rows, so I wasn't right behind them, but close enough.
They have a right to worship God as they choose, and when you interrupt that, that is a violation of the law. So yes, I think we're going to see more prosecutions there. I certainly hope that we're going to see more prosecutions there, but I'll let the Department of Justice speak to the timeline there. And on that note, let me just say, I see a lot of people here. I see a few young people. I see a lot of people who work at this great factory. I just want you to know that you are the people who make the United States of America a great country. When I think about all the great things about our nation, all the great things that we've accomplished, the world wars that we won, we've gone to the moon, we've cured diseases that nobody else thought could be cured. The foundation of that is the prosperity of the American working man and American working woman. You guys are the reason why we're able to do incredible things as the United States of America. We talk about our great foreign policy accomplishments. That starts right here in Toledo, Ohio. We talk about peace in the world. That starts right here in Toledo, Ohio. We talk about prosperity for the entire nation. That starts right here with building things and making things and employing good people in dignified work. That starts in Toledo, Ohio. The cars I see on the road all over the United States of America,
9-year-olds
built right here.
even.
The steel that builds our bridges and so many of our great buildings happens a
Gone to
stone's
the
throw
moon,
away
huh?
from this very facility. I want you to know that for too long, your leadership, your government.
There's some that on the left that believe that you should be able to have sex with kids day of birth, the day they're born.
Your
how sick
politicians
they are.
have looked down upon you, have ignored you, and that's not happening anymore. There are so many great things I could point to, so many policies, no taxes
Minor
on tips,
attractive
the
persons.
regulatory reform, the fact that we've unleashed American energy. But every single one of those
They call them minos or something like that. Minor attractive persons or something like that.
specific policy wins is about a simple fact: reinvesting in you and ensuring that your family has the same great shot at the American dream that I had. This is very personal to me. I don't know if you saw the announcement. I guess we made it yesterday or the day before, but our wonderful second lady is pregnant with our 4th child, and I'm very, very happy about that.
Yeah, birth rates.
You know, we were debating.
We gotta
having
have
a
more
4th
birth
child,
rates in
and,
America.
I said, honey, you know, the
More
new
Americans.
Trump accounts and the increased child tax credit are coming online. We got to take advantage of this stuff. She's going to be pissed at me about that one. That's okay. But look, this is personal to me. Just
That's
as I know
a
it's
good way to
personal
money
you. We've
launder
got
all the
skin in
time.
the game.
It
Our
happened
great
with the
governor-
colleges.
Governor candidate.
When
Not
they got
governor yet.
involved, the
We're
colleges
getting there.
got expensive.
Our great senator, all of these great leaders, they love people in the state of Ohio. They love people in this community who are going to rise or fall based on whether leaders in Washington make wise decisions.
Firearms would have been good.
I'm not
Gregory.
saying you're going to agree with everything that we do, though I know in this room we got a lot more agreement than disagreement. But what I am promising you is that every day for the next 3 years, so long as I am the Vice President of the United States, so long as Donald Trump is the President of the United States, we will remember that you are what makes America great, and we'll never stop fighting for you. God bless you. It's good to be home. Thank you.
8 more minutes. He probably went back to the thing. Let's see. Let's see. Just have closing here. Oh, I guess he did. Okay. Well, I do have another short one. Let me grab that short one. Hold on. This is a kind of recap of the whole thing that I played. This is a recap of the highlights. Here we go.
Well, let me ask you this. Am I on this list? Did you target my records and subpoena my phone toll records?
My understanding is your records were subpoenaed by prosecutors before I became special counsel.
Well, staff would put this up on the screen. I'm thankful for the great staff who discovered the email where I learned for the first time a few weeks ago that my phone records were indeed targeted. We called AT&T and we've learned that they were given to the Department of Justice, as this email indicates, because I had been in communication with Scott Perry, one of my colleagues here in Congress, who literally had his phone taken from him in front of his family. And of course, as we've already talked about in this document, it talks about you could be in violation of the privilege by even obtaining and possessing this information if the member objected to the disclosure. This happened 4 years ago in May of 2022, and I couldn't object because I didn't know. I didn't know until about 3 weeks ago. My question here is, was there any limits to your investigation or the investigation that preceded you, Mr. Smith? Because as egregious as a violation of separation of powers this is, as an egregious and abuse of power it is, it's far more concerning you are clearly targeting American citizens for merely being conservative or supporting the president. We've got memos that we've already been talking about in this hearing from April 2022 that preceded you that establish and open the investigations, one of which has Attorney General Merrick Garland's signature on it. And the focus was the electors. Now, that was 6 months before you were appointed. You testified earlier, you met and interviewed Merrick Garland and Deputy AG Lisa Monaco. And you briefed the AG and deputy multiple times. Did you brief them on the electors and the prosecution of their supposed crimes?
Did I? I'm sorry.
Did you brief them on the electors and their supposed crimes?
I don't recall
banner
specific
across the top, you know?
conversations, but I'm sure that in the course of briefing them, I
Hey,
discussed.
wasn't that the purpose of the entire investigation as it was set out? Because putting aside that in 1960, it was already talked about, my friend Mr. Tiffany, that Hawaii put forward an
I gotta
alternate slate of
cross the top
electors,
now.
the investigation
Before he had
pivoted to
something going
President
across
Trump
the bottom.
and, frankly, anybody who knew him. Do you know who Cleta Mitchell is?
Yes, I do.
She's an election lawyer that was involved in filing an election contest on behalf of President Trump in Georgia in December of 2020. A 64-page complaint with over 1,100 pages of exhibits, witness affidavits, and expert witness reports documenting thousands of votes cast in violation of Georgia law, but which were nevertheless included in the vote totals. Now, notwithstanding the disposition of the cases that was filed, is that a criminal act? Filing an election contest on behalf of a candidate for office, a client. Is that a criminal act? Yes or no?
No, in fact, we
So
stated.
why did you deem it appropriate to monitor Cleta Mitchell's long-distance phone records in 2023, 2.5 years after the election contest was filed and after the presidential electors were certified? What about Jen Ellis? What about Sidney Powell? What about Bill Sepien? What crime did you suspect had been committed by them that would warrant monitoring their phone records 2.5 years after the 2020 election was certified?
With respect to Sidney Powell, she is one of the co-conspirators alleged in the indictment. I don't know what you mean by monitoring, sir, if you're talking.
Well, there were some 400 plus Republican conservative groups and leaders who were targeted by your investigation. Their financial records were obtained, records of the RNC, the Trump campaign, Cleta Mitchell, the Conservative Partnership Institute, the America First Policy Institute, NRCC, NRSC, PACs, conservative groups, people all across the country, citizens, because we hear a lot about members of Congress. And we should, because of separation of powers and the egregious abuse of power. But what we're not talking about enough, in my opinion, are the American citizens that have been targeted. Because frankly, are there any limits to the power of a special prosecutor or special counsel? So much so in your abuse of power that in the summer of 2024, the indictment involving classified documents was dismissed after determining your appointment violated the Appointments Clause of the Constitution, but you continued to sign your name on court filings until the time you resigned from office in January of 2025. A federal judge just recently stated a prosecutor who continues to sign his name in court filings after a disqualification order should face disciplinary action or disbarment. I yield back.
Gentlemen.
I don't know. Okay, I'm going to end it there. Everyone, what would this switch to private somehow? Wow. Is everyone still able to comment? I don't know how they got switched when I switched the thing, I think. All right. God bless everyone. I'll probably see you tomorrow. I'll post what time. Probably 4 or 5 p.m. Okay? I'll see you tomorrow. God bless. Bye-bye. Thanks for hanging out.